Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with all Uchiha clan and had kids? And subscribe if you enjoy the video. And also check the description. So let's begin the story. The evening sun cast long shadows across the Hokage's office, painting the walls in hues of amber and gold. Naruto Uzumaki, the 7th Hokage of Konohagakure, sat behind his desk drowning in paperwork that seemed to multiply with each passing hour. 5 years had passed since the Fourth Shinobi War ended. 5 years since he and Sasuke had finally brought peace to the shinobi world. Yet somehow, administrative duties proved more exhausting than any battle he'd ever fought. This is cruel and unusual punishment, Naruto muttered, signing another trade agreement with barely a glance at the contents. I saved the world. Multiple times. And this is what I get? A knock at the door interrupted his complaints. Come in, he called, grateful for any distraction. Kakashi entered, his single visible eye creased with what Naruto had learned to recognize as concern. Behind him walked Sasuke, his eternal friend and rival, whose expression carried an unusual weight of seriousness, even for him. Oh great, the two of you together, Naruto said, attempting levity despite the sudden tension in the room. Let me guess, the world's ending again? We've got, until Tuesday? This might be more complicated than the end of the world, Kakashi said, pulling out a scroll sealed with the Uchiha clan symbol. The fan insignia seemed to shimmer in the fading light. 3 days ago, Anbu discovered an ancient shrine in the ruins of the old Uchiha district. It had been hidden beneath layers of sealing jutsu, the kind that only reveal themselves when certain conditions are met. Naruto's playful demeanor faded. He leaned forward, his blue eyes sharp. What kind of conditions? The end of a great war, Sasuke said quietly, stepping forward. His Rinnegan caught the light as he placed both hands on Naruto's desk. The deaths of the last Otsutsuki threat, and the presence of both Indra and Azura's current reincarnations in the same village, at peace. A chill ran down Naruto's spine. He'd learned enough about his connection to Azura and Sasuke's connection to Indra to know that their reincarnations appeared throughout history, usually at pivotal moments. What was in the shrine? Kakashi unfurled the scroll, revealing intricate writing in an archaic form of the language, interspersed with symbols Naruto didn't recognize. A prophecy, one written by the Sage of Six Paths himself, preserved by the Uchiha clan for generations. They called it the Prophecy of Crimson Unity. Crimson Unity? Naruto repeated. That sounds either really ominous or like a bad romance novel. Read it yourself, Sasuke said, his voice carrying an edge of frustration that suggested he'd been grappling with this information for days. He tapped a specific section of the scroll. Here, Naruto squinted at the text, then at his former teacher. You know I'm not great with the ancient stuff. Just tell me what it says. Kakashi cleared his throat and read. When the cycle of hatred threatens to consume all, when brother has fought brother, and the world has known the depths of despair, a bridge must be built between light and shadow. The child of prophecy, bearer of the sun's will, must join with the blood of the moon, the inheritors of visual power. Only through unity of blood and spirit can the cycle truly end. The children born of this union shall be the guardians of the new era, wielding both compassion and power, love and strength. 7 flames must join with the spiral to complete the circle. Silence filled the office. Naruto blinked several times, processing the words. Okay, so, bearer of the sun's will, that's probably me. Blood of the moon, Uchiha clan? Unity of blood and, wait. His eyes widened. Wait. Is this saying what I think it's saying? The prophecy suggests a marriage alliance, Kakashi said carefully. Between you and members of the Uchiha clan. Multiple members, based on the 7 flames reference. That's insane. Naruto jumped to his feet, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I can't just marry 7 people. That's not, does that even work? Is that even legal? Historically, clan alliances through marriage were common among shinobi clans, Kakashi explained, his tone maddeningly calm. Especially in times of rebuilding, the first Hokage's era saw several such arrangements. And given the near extinction of the Uchiha clan, there's legal precedent for extraordinary measures to preserve bloodlines. Naruto's mind reeled. He thought of Hinata, the gentle Hyuga heiress who'd confessed her feelings during the Pain assault. He thought of Sakura, his teammate who'd only recently begun moving past her feelings for Sasuke. He thought of his simple dream, to be acknowledged, to have a family, to live a normal life. Sasuke, Naruto turned to his friend desperately. Please tell me you think this is as crazy as I do. The last Uchiha was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. When he spoke, his voice was measured. I've spent the last 3 days investigating this. The shrine contained more than just the prophecy. There were records, Naruto. Records suggesting that our ancestors knew this moment would come. The Uchiha clan, we've been dying for generations. Not just from the massacre, but before that. Inbreeding, genetic degradation, the curse of hatred eating away at us from within. He pulled out another scroll, this one containing genealogical charts and medical records. The Sharingan itself has been weakening with each generation. Did you know that before Madara and Izuna, there hadn't been a Mangekyo awakening in nearly 50 years? The clan was stagnating. The prophecy suggests that an infusion of new blood, specifically Uzumaki blood, with its vitality and life force, could save the Uchiha from extinction. Not just in numbers, but as a viable bloodline. But 7 people, Sasuke. 7. Naruto ran his hand through his blonde hair, pacing the office. I can barely keep one plant alive. You expect me to build a life with 7 different women? To raise children? 2. He stopped, a horrifying thought occurring to him. Wait, who are these 7 Uchiha women? I thought you were the last of the clan besides. That's what we believed, Sasuke interrupted. But after the shrine was discovered, something happened. They started returning. They, survivors, a new voice said from the doorway. Naruto spun around to see a woman he didn't recognize. She appeared to be in her mid-30s, with long black hair pulled back in a traditional style and eyes that held the telltale Sharingan Tomo, currently inactive. She wore a kimono bearing the Uchiha crest, and her presence commanded immediate respect. Who are you? Naruto asked, his hand instinctively moving toward where he kept a kunai. My name is Izumi Uchiha, she said, bowing formally. I was Itachi's friend. I survived the massacre through circumstances I'll explain if you grant me an audience. Kakashi stepped forward. We verified her identity and her story. She's legitimate, Naruto. And she's not the only one. As if on cue, more women filed into the office. Each bore the Uchiha features, dark hair, pale skin, and eyes that had seen too much. They ranged in age from early 20s to late 30s. Naruto counted 6 of them standing before him. 6, he said weakly. You said 7? The 7th is complicated, Sasuke said. She's from a different timeline. The Otsutsuki's temporal manipulation had consequences we're still discovering. One of those consequences was creating a divergent timeline where I had a daughter before returning to our original timeline. She's 16, and before you panic, she's not part of the marriage arrangement. She's my daughter, and she'll be part of the clan's restoration, but not in that way. Naruto felt his legs might give out. He leaned heavily against his desk. This is too much. This is way too much. One of the younger women stepped forward. She couldn't have been more than 22, with kind eyes that reminded him painfully of Itachi. Hokage-sama, I understand this is overwhelming. It's overwhelming for us too. Most of us spent years in hiding, believing we were truly alone, that our clan was gone forever. When the prophecy revealed itself and we felt the call to return, she paused, choosing her words carefully. We're not here to trap you or force you into anything. We're here because the alternative is watching our bloodline die with Sasuke-san. Naomi's right, another woman said, older than the first, with streaks of gray in her hair. I'm Rin Uchiha. I fled the village 20 years ago after a mission went wrong and I was presumed dead. I built a life in the land of water. But when I felt the pull of the prophecy, when I learned there might be a way to restore what was lost, I had to come back. Each woman introduced herself, sharing fragments of their stories. Suki, who had been on a deep-cover mission during the massacre and only learned of her clan's fate years later. Akane, who had been married to a civilian and living in the land of fire's countryside, hiding her heritage to protect her husband and child. Kaori, a talented medical nin who'd been studying in the land of lightning. Yuki, the youngest at 20, who had been just a child when her parents faked their deaths to protect her from Danzo's machinations. And finally, there was one woman who had remained silent throughout, standing slightly apart from the others. When Naruto's eyes fell on her, his breath caught. "Mikoto Uchiha," Sasuke said quietly. "My mother. But she's dead," Naruto said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Itachi, Orochimaru's research included notes on making Edo Tensei permanent," Kakashi explained. "After the war, when we were analyzing his hideouts, Kabuto found a way to use the same principle that kept Madara anchored to the living world. With Sasuke's consent, we attempted the technique. It worked, but only because her soul was willing and the technique was performed with pure intentions." Mikoto stepped forward, and Naruto could see the weight of death and resurrection in her eyes. But there was also warmth there, a motherly gentleness that made his heart ache for Kushina. "Naruto-kun," she said softly, "I know my son. I know he explained this as a political necessity, a genetic imperative. But let me be clear, I would never force you into this. What we're proposing is a chance for you to have the family you've always wanted, and a chance for us to rebuild what was taken from us." Naruto looked around at all the faces watching him. 7 women, just as the prophecy stated. 7 survivors of a massacre, each carrying their own pain and hope. "I need time. I need to think about this." "I need to, of course," Izumi said immediately. "This is not a decision to be made in an evening. Take all the time you need. But understand," Rin added, her tone gentle but firm, "time is something we don't have in unlimited supply. Some of us are not young. If we're to rebuild the clan, to have children who can carry both bloodlines." "I get it," Naruto said, holding up a hand. "I understand the urgency. Just give me a few days. Let me process this." The women bowed in unison, a gesture so synchronized it spoke to their shared heritage. They filed out of the office, leaving only Sasuke, Kakashi, and Naruto. "You knew about this," Naruto said to Sasuke, accusation coloring his tone. "How long have you known?" 3 days, Sasuke replied. "I wanted to refuse immediately. The idea of you marrying my mother," he grimaced. "It's complicated, but then I read the full prophecy, saw the genetic analyses, spoke with each of the women. They're not mindless followers, Naruto. They're survivors who see a chance at something they thought was lost forever." "And what do you see?" Naruto asked. Sasuke met his eyes, Rinnegan and Blue staring at each other with years of friendship and rivalry between them. "I see my best friend being asked to carry a burden he didn't choose. Again. But I also see the only real path forward for my clan. You're the only person I trust with this, which is why it makes it even more complicated." After Sasuke left, Naruto remained in his office long into the night. He stood at the window, looking out over the village he'd sworn to protect. Below, lights twinkled in homes where families gathered for dinner, where parents tucked children into bed, where life continued in its peaceful, ordinary way. He thought about his own childhood, the loneliness, the hunger for acknowledgement, the desperate wish for someone to care. He thought about Team 7, about Iruka-sensei, about Jiraiya, all the people who'd become his family by choice rather than blood. Could he do this? Could he build a life with 7 women he barely knew? Could he father children who would carry the weight of 2 legendary bloodlines? A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. "It's open," he called. Shikamaru entered, hands in his pockets, his expression suggesting he already knew what Naruto was dealing with. As the Hokage's advisor, he was likely briefed on all major situations. "Heard you had an interesting evening," Shikamaru said, dropping into a chair with his characteristic laziness. "That's one word for it," Naruto replied. "I'm guessing Kakashi-sensei told you everything?" "Everything," Shikamaru confirmed. "And I've been running scenarios in my head for the last hour. Want my analysis? Do I have a choice?" Shikamaru ignored the rhetorical question. "Politically, this is either brilliant or disastrous, with no middle ground. If you agree, you tie yourself to the Uchiha clan in a way that legitimizes their return and signals to other villages that Konoha is still strong. You're already the Hokage, already powerful. Adding the backing of a restored Uchiha clan makes you nearly untouchable politically. But," Naruto prompted, "but it also paints a target on your back." Some will see it as you creating a dynasty, concentrating too much power in one family. Others will fear the children you might have. What happens when you combine Uzumaki vitality and chakra with Uchiha visual prowess? You're looking at the potential creation of the most powerful shinobi in history. That sounds like a problem, Naruto said weakly. It is a problem, Shikamaru agreed. But it's also an opportunity. Those children could be the bridge the prophecy talks about. They could be symbols of a new era, living proof that the old clan conflicts don't have to define the future. Naruto turned to face his friend fully. What would you do? If you were in my position? Shikamaru was quiet for a moment, actually considering the question seriously. I think about what I really want. Not what the village needs, not what the prophecy says, not what anyone else expects. What do you want, Naruto? I want a family, Naruto said immediately. I've always wanted a family. People to come home to, kids to teach and protect, someone to share life with. But I pictured it differently. I pictured meeting someone, falling in love, building something together naturally. And this doesn't feel natural, Shikamaru observed. It feels like an arranged marriage. 7 arranged marriages. That's because it is, Shikamaru said bluntly. But arranged marriages were the norm for shinobi clans for generations. Most of them learned to love each other over time. My parents' marriage was arranged, and they're happy. Sometimes love grows from commitment rather than preceding it. That's assuming they can even learn to love me, Naruto said. What if I'm just a means to an end? The Uzumaki stud they need to rebuild their clan? Then you don't do it, Shikamaru said simply. But I saw the dossiers Kakashi compiled. These women aren't cold-hearted schemers. They're survivors who've been alone for years, who watched their families die, who've lived in hiding in fear. They're looking for the same thing you are, a family. Maybe not in the way any of you imagine, but sometimes we don't get to choose how happiness finds us. After Shikamaru left, Naruto made a decision. He couldn't judge this situation from his office. He needed to meet these women properly, to understand who they really were beyond their tragic histories and the weight of prophecy. The next morning, he sent messages to each of the Uchiha women, inviting them to meet him individually over the next week. Not as the Hokage meeting with petitioners, but as Naruto getting to know people who might become his family. His first meeting was with Izumi at a small tea house on the edge of the village. She arrived punctually, dressed simply but elegantly, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. Without the formal setting of the office, she seemed younger, less burdened. Thank you for agreeing to meet me, Naruto said as they sat on the outdoor patio, tea steaming between them. Thank you for giving this consideration, Izumi replied. I know Sasuke told you I was close to Itachi. That's an understatement. I loved him. And on the night of the massacre, he came to me. Naruto leaned forward, listening intently. He trapped me in its Tsukuyumi, Izumi continued, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. He showed me an entire life. Us together, married, growing old, having children, grandchildren. I lived 70 years in a few seconds. And then he released me. I was so deep in the illusion that my body shut down. I should have died. But I was found by a medical nin who was passing through, someone who specialized in trauma cases. She saved me, but I was in a coma for months. By the time I woke up, the Uchiha were gone, Itachi was labeled a traitor, and I was too weak to reveal I'd survived. Why didn't you come back after you recovered? Naruto asked gently. Because I believed the life Itachi showed me was his way of saying goodbye, Izumi said. He gave me a fantasy because the reality was too horrible. How could I return to a village where the man I loved was hated, where my clan was slaughtered? I wasn't strong enough. So I traveled, took on a new identity, tried to build a life. But it was hollow. Everything was hollow without him, without my clan, without purpose. And now I have a chance to honor his memory properly, Izumi said, meeting his eyes. Itachi sacrificed everything for this village, for Sasuke, for peace. If I can help build something good from that sacrifice, if I can be part of creating a future he would have wanted, that means something. They talked for hours. Naruto learned about Izumi's work as a genjutsu specialist, her travels through the land of water, her quiet strength. He shared his own story, the loneliness, the nine tails, his determination to never give up. And slowly, he began to see not just an Uchiha survivor, but a woman who understood loss and kept moving forward anyway. His meeting with Naomi was different. The young woman was nervous, fidgeting with her teacup as they sat in the Hokage's private garden. She couldn't have been more than 22, with Itachi's kind eyes and a gentle demeanor that reminded him of Hinata. "I don't really remember the massacre," she admitted. "I was only 2 years old. My parents were on a mission when it happened, one of the few Uchiha families away from the compound that night. When they learned what happened, they went into hiding. We lived in a small village in the land of tea. They raised me to know our heritage, but never use our abilities publicly. That must have been hard," Naruto said. "Having this power but not being able to use it. It was frustrating," Naomi agreed. "Especially when I awakened my Sharingan at 8. My father trained me in secret, but he always seemed sad when he did, like he was teaching me about a world I could never truly be part of. What happened to them? Bandits attacked our village 3 years ago. My father fought them off, but he had to use his Sharingan. Word spread. Within a week, Rogue Ninja arrived, trying to claim the bounty on his eyes. My parents sacrificed themselves so I could escape." Tears welled in her eyes. "I've been alone since then, moving from place to place, never staying long enough to form connections. When I felt the pull of the prophecy, it was like finally being called home." Naruto reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. "You're not alone anymore," he said firmly. "Whatever happens with this prophecy thing, you're a member of Konoha now. You have a village, people who'll protect you." The gratitude in her eyes was almost overwhelming. His meetings continued throughout the week. Rin told him about her years in the Land of Water, working as a medical consultant, and studying their unique jutsu. Suki shared her experiences as a deep-cover operative, the guilt she carried for not being there during the massacre, and her determination to honor those lost. Akane spoke of her civilian husband who had passed away 2 years prior, and her teenage son who possessed latent Uchiha abilities he didn't understand. Kaori demonstrated her medical ninjutsu prowess, explaining how she believed combining it with Uzumaki healing factors could revolutionize shinobi medicine. Yuki, the youngest, was full of fire and determination, her Sharingan already showing 2 tomo despite her age. And finally, there was Mikoto. They met at the memorial stone where Kushina's name was carved. Mikoto stood there when Naruto arrived, her hand resting gently on his mother's name. "She was my friend," Mikoto said softly. "Did you know that? Kushina and I were pregnant at the same time. We used to joke about whether our sons would be friends or rivals. Looks like they became both," Naruto said, moving to stand beside her. "She would be so proud of you," Mikoto said, turning to face him. "Everything you've accomplished, the man you've become. Kushina always said her son would be someone special. I wish I could have known her," Naruto said quietly. "Sometimes I try to imagine what life would have been like if my parents had lived, if the Nine Tails attack never happened." "You would have been loved," Mikoto said with certainty. "Loved and probably spoiled rotten. Kushina was fierce as a mother, but she had the biggest heart. And Minato. He would have taught you everything, been so patient and proud." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Mikoto spoke again. "I need to be honest with you about something, Naruto. This situation, me being part of this arrangement, it's complicated in ways the others don't have to deal with. I'm Sasuke's mother. That creates a dynamic that will be difficult for everyone involved." "I know," Naruto said. "I've been thinking about that a lot. I want you to understand that I'm not doing this out of desperation or obligation," Mikoto continued. "When Sasuke brought me back, gave me a second chance at life, I thought I would spend my days watching over him from a distance, trying to make up for failing him the first time. But the prophecy offers something else, a chance to actively rebuild what was destroyed, to create life instead of mourning death." "But why me?" Naruto asked. "Why are you all so willing to tie yourselves to someone you barely know?" Mikoto smiled, and for a moment, Naruto saw where Sasuke got his rare, genuine expressions of warmth. "Because we've watched you, Naruto. Some of us for years. You saved the world. You brought Sasuke back from darkness when no one else could. You became Hokage despite every obstacle placed in your path. You're the kind of person who makes others want to be better. That's not someone we barely know. That's someone whose character speaks for itself." By the end of the week, Naruto's head was spinning with information, stories, and impossible decisions. He'd come to know 7 remarkable women, each with their own pain and strength, each choosing to take this leap of faith. He called a meeting with his closest advisors, Kakashi, Shikamaru, Sasuke, and surprisingly, Kurama, who had become more talkative since their cooperation during the war. "Well, Kit?" Kurama's voice rumbled in his mindscape. "What's your decision?" "I want to do this," Naruto said, the words feeling both terrifying and right. "Not because of the prophecy or the politics or even the genetics. I want to do this because these women deserve a chance at happiness, at family, at rebuilding. And because I think I could learn to love them. I think we could build something good together." "Then you need to do this properly," Kakashi said. "Not as a clan arrangement, not as a prophecy fulfillment, but as a real commitment. Each of these women needs to know they're valued as individuals, not just as Uchiha wombs." "How do I even start that?" Naruto asked helplessly. "The same way you do everything," Sasuke said, the ghost of a smile on his face. Honestly, loudly, and with complete sincerity. 3 days later, Naruto gathered all 7 women in the rebuilt Uchiha compound's main hall. Lanterns cast warm light across the polished floors, and the Uchiha fan symbol hung prominently on the wall, restored and honored. "I've thought a lot about this," Naruto began, standing before them. "About the prophecy, about duty, about what's expected, and I realize that if I approach this as just another responsibility, another burden to bear as Hokage, then I'm already failing. You all deserve more than that." He took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "I'm not going to stand here and promise love at first sight or perfect harmony. We barely know each other. But I want to know you. Really know you. I want to understand your dreams, your fears, what makes you laugh, what drives you. I want to build something real together, not just fulfill a prophecy." Izumi stepped forward first. "What are you proposing?" "A year," Naruto said. "Give me a year. Let me court each of you properly, the way you deserve. Let us figure out if this can work, if we can become a family not just on paper but in our hearts. At the end of that year, we'll have a ceremony if everyone still agrees. But until then, let's just try. Try to know each other, try to build trust, try to see if this impossible thing might actually work." The women looked at each other, silent communication passing between them. Finally, Mikoto spoke for the group. "We agree. But Naruto, you need to understand, we're not passive participants in this. We'll be getting to know you too. Judging if you're truly the man we believe you to be. This goes both ways." "I wouldn't want it any other way," Naruto grinned, his genuine smile breaking the tension in the room. And so began the strangest year of Naruto Uzumaki's life. He divided his time between his Hokage duties and getting to know 7 very different women. He trained with Suki in taijutsu, discovering her unique fighting style. He learned genjutsu principles from Izumi, even though his own skills in that area remained abysmal. He worked with Kaori in the hospital, gaining new appreciation for medical ninjutsu. He helped Akane's son adjust to life in Konoha and begin formal training. He sparred with Yuki, her fire techniques pushing him to develop new strategies. He studied history with Rin, learning about the Uchiha clan's true legacy beyond the tragedy. And with Mikoto, he talked about Kushina, about families, about the weight of legacy and the hope of new beginnings. Slowly, impossibly, it began to work. Not smoothly. There were arguments, misunderstandings, moments of doubt. Naruto discovered that Yuki was fiercely jealous when he spent time with others. Rin and Suki had different philosophies on training that led to heated debates. Naomi struggled with anxiety about whether she was worthy of being part of this. Akane worried about how her son would adjust to this unconventional family structure. Kaori sometimes retreated into her work to avoid emotional vulnerability. But through it all, they kept trying. They shared meals together, trained together, laughed and argued and slowly became something more than strangers bound by prophecy. They became friends. They became a unit. And Naruto, who had spent so long lonely and desperate for acknowledgement, found himself surrounded by people who chose to stay, who wanted to know him, who saw both his strengths and his flaws and accepted all of it. As the year drew to a close, Naruto stood once again in the Uchiha compound's main hall. But this time, it wasn't empty and formal. Decorations covered the walls, combinations of the Uzumaki spiral and the Uchiha fan. His friends filled the space, Team 7, the Konoha 11, his former teachers and comrades. And before him stood 7 women in traditional wedding kimonos, each incorporating both clan symbols. "I never imagined my life would look like this," Naruto said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "I never imagined I'd stand here, about to pledge myself to 7 remarkable women. But life has a way of surprising us. You've all taught me that love doesn't have to look one specific way. Family doesn't have to fit a particular mold. What matters is the commitment we make, the trust we build, and the future we create together." He looked at each woman in turn. "Izumi, you taught me that strength comes from honoring the past while building the future. Naomi, you showed me that gentleness doesn't mean weakness. Rin, your wisdom helped me understand the weight of history. Suki, your determination reminded me why we never give up. Akane, you proved that family is about more than blood. Kaori, your dedication to healing showed me new ways to protect people. Yuki, your fire challenged me to keep growing stronger. And Mikoto." He paused, emotion choking his words. "You helped me understand my mother in ways I never could have otherwise. You've become the maternal figure I never had while also being your own person." "Thank you." The ceremony was long and elaborate, combining traditions from both clans. Sasuke stood as Naruto's best man, his expression complex but supportive. Kakashi officiated, his voice solemn as he spoke of bonds that transcended convention. Each woman said her vows, and Naruto responded to each individually, acknowledging their unique place in this unconventional family. When it was done, when the sake had been shared and the official seals placed, Naruto looked at his 7 wives and felt something he never quite experienced before: complete and utter belonging. The prophecy had brought them together. But it would be their choices, their commitment, and their love that would determine what came next. In the months that followed, the reality of their situation set in. Living with 7 women, each with their own needs and perspectives, proved challenging in ways Naruto hadn't anticipated. They established routines, designated spaces in the compound for each wife, and created systems for managing their complicated household. And slowly, life began. Not the prophecy's fulfillment, or the clan's restoration, or the political maneuvering. Just life. Meals together, training sessions, quiet evenings, heated discussions, and gradually, intimacy in all its forms: emotional, intellectual, and physical. Naruto learned that Izumi liked her tea exactly at 180 degrees. That Naomi sang while she cooked. That Rin read medical journals before bed. That Suki sleep-talked in elaborate tactical scenarios. That Akane missed her late husband but was learning to love again. That Kaori's hands could heal almost anything but trembled when she tried to express emotion. That Yuki was secretly terrified of thunderstorms. That Mikoto sometimes cried quietly when she thought no one was listening, grief and gratitude mixing in equal measure. And they learned about him. His midnight ramen cravings. His need to train when stressed. His terrible jokes and genuine laughter. His nightmares about failing his friends. His dreams for the village. His fear that he would somehow fail them, that he wasn't enough for 7 women who deserved the world. One night, about 6 months after the wedding, Naruto found himself unable to sleep. He walked through the Uchiha compound, marveling at how different it felt from the abandoned ruins he'd once seen. Light glowed from several rooms: Rin reading, Yuki training in the courtyard, Kaori reviewing medical notes. He ended up in the main garden, sitting by the koi pond his wives had insisted on installing. The water reflected the full moon, and for a moment, everything felt perfect and surreal. Couldn't sleep? Mikoto's voice came from behind him. Too much on my mind, Naruto admitted as she sat beside him. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. That I have all this. Feeling overwhelmed? Grateful, Naruto corrected. Overwhelmed too, but mostly grateful. I spent so long alone. And now you have more family than you know what to do with, Mikoto finished with a soft smile. She placed a hand on his shoulder. You're doing well, Naruto. Better than you think. We all see how hard you're trying to make this work, to give each of us attention and care while still being Hokage. It's not easy, and we appreciate it. Do you ever regret this? Naruto asked quietly. Being brought back, being part of this unusual arrangement? Mikoto was silent for a long moment, considering her answer. I regret the years I lost with Sasuke. I regret not being there to stop what happened to my clan. But this, being part of building something new, I don't regret this. Life has given me a second chance, and I choose to embrace it. All of it, including you. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the koi swim lazy circles in the moonlit water. Inside the compound, a baby's cry suddenly pierced the quiet. Both of them froze. Was that? Naruto started. Akane's son, Mikoto said, already moving. He has nightmares sometimes. But as they entered the compound, they realized the sound wasn't coming from the teenage boy's room. It was coming from Naomi's quarters. The young woman stood in her doorway, tears streaming down her face, her hand pressed to her stomach. Around her, the other wives were emerging from their rooms, sensing something significant. I'm pregnant, Naomi whispered, her voice filled with wonder and fear. I just took the test. I'm pregnant. The compound erupted. Questions flew, congratulations were offered, and medical assessments were immediately planned. But through it all, Naruto stood frozen, the reality crashing over him like a tsunami. He was going to be a father. The prophecy wasn't just words on an ancient scroll anymore. It was life, growing inside one of his wives. It was the future, becoming real. That night, after the excitement calmed and Naomi had been thoroughly checked by both Koari and Sakura, who had been summoned immediately, Naruto gathered all his wives in their private meeting room. Things are going to change, he said unnecessarily. They all knew it. We're going to have a child. Maybe more than one, as time goes on. And those children, they're going to carry expectations neither of us can fully understand yet. They'll also carry love, Izumi said firmly. And protection. And the knowledge that they were wanted and cherished. The prophecy spoke of guardians for a new era, Rin added. But prophecies don't raise children. Parents do. We'll figure this out together, the way we figured out everything else. Naruto looked at each of them, these 7 women who had become his family, his partners, his support system. I promise you all something right now. Whatever children we have, however many, they will never feel alone the way I did. They will never doubt they're loved. They will never question whether they belong. That's my vow to you and to them. Our vow, Mikoto corrected gently. We're in this together, Naruto. That's what family means. And so, as the evening stars faded and dawn approached over Kanehigakure, Naruto Uzumaki stood surrounded by his wives, knowing that the prophecy of unity had truly begun. The first child would arrive in 9 months. The first of many children who would inherit both the Uzumaki spiral and the Uchiha fan, both overwhelming chakra and visual prowess, both the will of fire and the legacy of the moon. The children who would, indeed, become the guardians of a new era. But that story would unfold in its own time. For now, there was a nursery to prepare, a village to reassure, a clan to rebuild, and most importantly, a family to nurture. Naruto had saved the world through his determination and his refusal to give up. Now he would build a family the same way, one day at a time, one challenge at a time, with love and commitment, and the unwavering belief that tomorrow could be better than today. The prophecy of Crimson Unity had brought them together, but it would be love that held them together. And in a world that had known too much hatred and pain, that was its own kind of miracle. The news of Naomi's pregnancy spread through Kanehigakure like wildfire, igniting reactions that ranged from genuine joy to thinly veiled concern. Naruto discovered this firsthand when he arrived at his office the morning after the announcement to find a mountain of correspondence waiting for him. Congratulations from the land of wind, concerns from the land of earth, a gift basket from the land of lightning, and a very formal letter from the fire daimyo requesting a private audience, Shikamaru summarized, holding up various scrolls and packages. Also, about 47 marriage proposals from various noble families trying to secure alliances with the new Uchiha dynasty, which is both premature and troublesome. Naruto groaned, slumping into his chair. It's been less than 12 hours. How does information travel this fast? Shinobi intelligence networks, Shikamaru replied dryly. Also, Ino may have accidentally mentioned it to her father, who mentioned it to the intelligence division, who have protocols for reporting significant developments regarding the Hokage. By dawn, every major village knew, Fantastic. Naruto rubbed his temples. What's the fire daimyo want? To make sure you're not creating a military dynasty that could threaten the balance of power, Shikamaru said bluntly. To be fair, it's a legitimate concern. The combination of Uzumaki and Uchiha bloodlines in a large family loyal to one individual, who also happens to be the Hokage, looks concerning from a political standpoint. I'm not trying to create a dynasty, Naruto protested. I'm just trying to have a family. I know that. You know that. But the rest of the world sees the Hokage with 7 wives from one of history's most powerful clans, expecting the first of potentially many children who will inherit abilities that individually have shaped wars. You need to manage the optics. Before Naruto could respond, a knock at the door announced Sasuke's arrival. His friend looked even more serious than usual, which was saying something. We need to talk, Sasuke said without preamble. About Naomi and what comes next. Good morning to you too, Naruto replied, but gestured for him to continue. Sasuke closed the door and activated a privacy seal. I've been researching our clan's history with pregnancy and childbirth. There are complications we need to prepare for. What kind of complications? Naruto felt his stomach tighten. The Sharingan is tied to chakra and emotion in ways we still don't fully understand, Sasuke explained. During pregnancy, hormonal changes can affect chakra flow. There are records of pregnant Uchiha women accidentally activating their Sharingan during emotional moments, which can drain chakra reserves needed for the baby's development. It's why the Uchiha clan used to have specialized medical protocols. Does Naomi know about this? Naruto asked, already moving toward the door. I told her this morning, Sasuke confirmed. She's with Kaori and Sakura now, discussing a care plan. But Naruto, there's more. The child will likely have access to both your chakra reserves and the Sharingan potential. We have no historical precedent for this combination. The child's chakra network might develop in unexpected ways. Naruto absorbed this information, his mind racing. So we're going into completely uncharted territory. Yes. Which is why I suggest we consult with the Slug Sage. Tsunade's knowledge combined with Katsuyu's centuries of experience with chakra systems might give us better insight. Already ahead of you, a familiar voice said from the window. Both men spun to find Tsunade perched on the windowsill, sake bottle in hand despite the early hour. Behind her, Sakura stood in the doorway, medical bag slung over her shoulder. Did you really think I wouldn't hear about this? Tsunade asked, hopping down with the grace that belied her true age. My successor's most complicated case just walked into our hospital. I'm not missing this, Tsunade-sama, Naruto said, relief flooding through him. Thank you for coming. Don't thank me yet, brat. Thank me after we figure out how to safely deliver a baby that might be born with active chakra coils and dormant Sharingan. She turned to Sakura. What did your initial examination reveal? Sakura pulled out her notes. Naomi's approximately 6 weeks along. The fetus is developing normally so far, but I detected unusual chakra signatures. The baby's chakra network is forming faster than typical pregnancies. It's almost as if it's responding to both parents' genetic imprints simultaneously. Fascinating and terrifying, Tsunade muttered. We'll need weekly monitoring, possibly more frequent as the pregnancy progresses. Sasuke's right about the Sharingan complications. I treated several Uchiha women during my time in the village. The key is maintaining emotional stability and chakra balance. Naomi is one of the gentlest people I know, Naruto said. She should be fine with emotional stability. Pregnancy hormones don't care about your baseline personality, Tsunade said bluntly. She's going to experience mood swings, and with the Sharingan's connection to emotions, that could trigger activations. We need to teach her control techniques specifically designed for expectant mothers. The conversation continued for another hour, covering medical protocols, potential complications, and contingency plans. By the time Tsunade and Sakura left to check on Naomi, Naruto's head was spinning with information. This is just the beginning, Sasuke said quietly after they'd gone. Are you ready for this? Really ready? Naruto met his friend's mismatched eyes. The eternal Sharingan and the Rinnegan that had seen so much. No, he admitted. I'm terrified. But I wasn't ready to be Hokage either, or to fight a war, or to save the world. Somehow we figure it out anyway. We, Sasuke repeated. You keep saying that, because it's true. I'm not doing this alone. I have 7 wives, the best medical team in the world, and... Naruto grinned. I have you, my best friend who happens to be the last loyal Uchiha, and conveniently an expert on Sharingan-related matters. You're not getting out of uncle duty that easily. For the first time that morning, Sasuke's expression softened slightly. Uncle duty. That's going to take getting used to. Speaking of getting used to things, Naruto said, his tone shifting to something more serious. How are you really handling all this? Your mother being part of this arrangement, me being married to her. We haven't really talked about it. Sasuke was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. It's complicated. Part of me is grateful she has a second chance at life, at happiness. Another part still sees her as my mother, which makes this situation uncomfortable. But I've watched her over these months. She's not just going through the motions. She's genuinely building a new life, finding joy again. And if that life includes you... He paused. You're probably the only person I'd accept in this situation. That means a lot, Naruto said sincerely. Don't make it weird, Sasuke replied, but there was warmth in his tone. Just take care of them. All of them. Including the children to come. After Sasuke left, Naruto made his way to the Uchiha compound. He found a scene of organized chaos. Rin and Mikoto were directing construction workers who were converting one of the larger rooms into a nursery. Izumi and Suki were arguing about security protocols. Yuki was practicing fire techniques in the courtyard, probably to burn off nervous energy. And in the kitchen, Akane was teaching her son, Kenji, how to make a traditional Uchiha celebratory meal. Naruto-sama, Kenji called out when he spotted the Hokage. The 15-year-old had adjusted well to life in Konoha, though he still struggled with his latent Uchiha abilities. Mom's teaching me how to make sekihin. It's traditional for celebrations, Akane explained, smiling as she guided her son's hands through the rice washing process. When someone announces a pregnancy, the family makes red bean rice to share good fortune. Naruto watched them work, touched by the normalcy of the scene. In all the prophecies and political maneuvering, it was easy to forget the simple human elements. Family cooking together, preparing to celebrate new life. Where's Naomi? He asked. Her room, Mikoto said, approaching from the construction area. Tsunade-sama and Sakura just finished examining her. She's resting now, but I'm sure she'd appreciate seeing you. Naruto made his way through the compound, still marveling at how much it had changed in recent months. What was once a ghost town of empty houses and faded memories now bustled with life. His wives had each claimed and renovated their own spaces while maintaining communal areas where they gathered. It was an unusual arrangement, but it worked for them. He found Naomi's door partially open. Inside, the young woman sat by her window, one hand resting on her still flat stomach, gazing out at the village below. Hey, Naruto said softly, knocking on the doorframe. Naomi turned, and her face lit up with a smile that made his heart ache. Naruto-kun. Come in. He entered and sat beside her, taking her free hand in his. How are you feeling? Really? Scared, Naomi admitted. Excited. Overwhelmed. All of it at once. She looked down at her stomach. There's a life growing inside me. Our child. It doesn't feel real yet. Tsunade-sama explained the complications? Naruto asked gently. Yes. The Sharingan activation risks, the accelerated chakra development, all of it. She met his eyes, and he saw determination mixed with the fear. But she also said that with proper care and monitoring, everything should be fine. And I have the best medical team in the world, plus 6 other wives who've already promised to help however they can. 7, Naruto corrected. You have 7 other wives and me. We're all in this together. Naomi squeezed his hand. I know I'm the youngest. Sometimes I wonder if the others think I'm not ready for this, if I'm too inexperienced. Stop, Naruto interrupted firmly but kindly. No one thinks that. If anything, your youth means you have energy the rest of us will need when the baby arrives and we're all sleep-deprived and covered in various fluids I don't want to think about yet. That got a laugh out of her, breaking the tension. You're probably right. Izumi was already joking about how she's too old for midnight feedings. They talked for a while longer, discussing names they liked. wondering whether the baby would inherit his blonde hair or her dark Uchiha coloring, imagining what their child's personality might be like. It was intimate and ordinary and perfect. A knock interrupted them. Yuki stood in the doorway, her usual fiery energy somewhat subdued. "Sorry to interrupt, but we're having a family meeting in the main hall. Everyone needs to be there." The main hall had been transformed into a comfortable gathering space with cushions arranged in a circle. All 7 of his wives were present, and Naruto took his place among them, feeling the weight of their collective gaze. "We need to talk about how this is going to work," Rin began, ever the practical one. "Naomi's pregnancy is just the first. Based on the prophecy and our own choices, there will likely be more children. We need systems in place." "Systems?" Naruto repeated, slightly lost. "Childcare rotations," Kaori explained. "Medical protocols. Security measures. Educational plans. Division of responsibilities. We can't just wing this." "I vote we hire a nanny," Yuki said immediately. "Multiple nannies. An army of nannies." "Absolutely not," Mikoto replied firmly. "We will raise our own children." "But Yuki has a point, we'll need help. Naruto has Hokage duties, several of us have our own careers and responsibilities. We need to be realistic about time and energy." The discussion that followed was intense. Izumi suggested a rotating schedule where 2 wives would be primary caregivers each week, while the others supported. Suki proposed advanced security measures, including specialized seals and guard rotations. Akane offered her experience as a mother, explaining common pitfalls and solutions. Kaori outlined medical monitoring requirements. Naruto listened, amazed by their organization and forethought. These women were taking an impossible situation and making it workable through sheer determination and cooperation. "What about you?" Rin asked, turning to him. "What role do you see yourself playing?" "Every role I can," Naruto said immediately. "Yes, I'm Hokage, but I'm also a father. I'll use shadow clones if I have to, 1 for the office, 1 for the kids, however many I need. I refuse to be an absent father." "Shadow clones for childcare is a terrible idea," Mikoto said, but her tone was gentle. "Children need authentic presence, not chakra copies. We'll figure out a balance. But you can't be everywhere at once, Naruto. You'll burn out." "She's right," Izumi added. "We need to be practical. You'll be there for the important moments, births, first words, first steps, training sessions. But the day-to-day care? That's what we're planning for among ourselves." It was hard to accept, but Naruto knew they were right. He couldn't be everywhere, couldn't do everything. That's why he had 7 partners instead of going this alone. "Okay," he agreed. "But I want daily reports. And I want at least 1 meal together as a family every day, even if I have to leave my shadow clone dealing with paperwork." "Deal," Rin said, and the others nodded in agreement. The meeting continued for hours, covering everything from nursery design to inheritance rights to how they'd handle the inevitable public scrutiny. By the time they finished, the sun was setting, and they'd created a comprehensive plan that somehow made the impossible feel manageable. That evening, following tradition, the entire household gathered to share the sekihan Akane and Kenji had prepared. Naruto looked around the table at his unusual family, 7 women from different backgrounds and generations, united by circumstance and growing affection. A teenage boy learning to embrace his heritage, and somewhere, growing within Naomi, a child who would be the first of a new generation. "I want to make a toast," Naruto said, raising his cup of tea. "To family. Not the family we expected maybe, but the family we've chosen. To the journey ahead, whatever it brings." "To family," the others echoed, their voices blending together. Later that night, Naruto found himself in his private quarters, a space that connected to each of his wives' rooms through a series of doors, allowing privacy while maintaining accessibility. Tonight, it was Izumi who knocked softly before entering. "Can't sleep?" she asked, settling beside him on the futon. "Too much on my mind," Naruto admitted. Today was overwhelming. The medical concerns, the political implications, the planning, it's a lot. Izumi was quiet for a moment before speaking. "Can I tell you something? When Itachi showed me that life in Tsukuyami, the one thing I remember most clearly was the ordinary moments. Not the big events, but the quiet evenings, the simple conversations, the feeling of being part of something bigger than myself. I lost that when I woke up. But these past months with you, with everyone, I'm finding it again. Real this time. She took his hand, her Sharingan activating briefly, the tomos spinning slowly. The prophecy brought us together, but what we're building is our choice. Every day, we choose this. Choose each other, choose to make this work. That's more powerful than any ancient prediction. Naruto looked into her eyes that had seen loss and illusion, but had never stopped hoping. You're really okay with this? Sharing me with 6 other women? Never having me completely to yourself? I have you completely in the moments we share, Izumi replied. That's enough. Besides, I see how you are with each of us. You don't divide your love, Naruto. You multiply it. Every one of us feels valued and cherished in our own way. That's not something to be ashamed of, it's a gift. She leaned against him, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the moon rise over Konoha. Outside, the village slept peacefully, unaware of the future being shaped within the Uchiha compound walls. Over the following weeks, life settled into new rhythms. Naomi's pregnancy progressed smoothly despite the concerns, with weekly checkups showing the baby developing faster than normal but healthily. The nursery took shape, decorated with both Uzumaki spirals and Uchiha fans in a design that somehow looked harmonious rather than cluttered. Naruto discovered that each of his wives had different ways of connecting with him. Izumi preferred quiet evenings discussing philosophy and history. Naomi liked exploring the village together, seeing Konoha through fresh eyes. Rin challenged him intellectually, debating policy and medical ethics. Suki trained with him, their sparring sessions intense and exhilarating. Akane cooked for him, showing love through carefully prepared meals. Kaori shared her medical research, trusting him with her vulnerabilities. Yuki's fiery passion kept him on his toes, her competitive nature pushing him to be better. And Mikoto offered maternal wisdom, helping him understand the family he was building while sharing stories of Kushina that made him feel connected to his mother. It wasn't always smooth. There were arguments about everything from security protocols to whose turn it was to deal with Naruto's terrible attempts at cooking. Jealousies flared occasionally. Yuki felt neglected when Naruto spent 3 consecutive evenings working with Kaori on medical projects. Akane worried she wasn't contributing enough compared to the others' impressive shinobi skills. Naomi's pregnancy hormones led to emotional outbursts that activated her Sharingan at inopportune moments. But through it all, they kept trying. They established communication protocols, weekly family meetings, daily check-ins, a message board in the main hall for coordinating schedules. They celebrated small victories and supported each other through setbacks. 1 month into Naomi's pregnancy, political pressure began mounting. The Fire Daimyo made good on his request for an audience, arriving in Konoha with an entourage that could only be described as excessive. Hokage-sama, the daimyo said formally, settling into the meeting room with all the ceremony his position required. I trust you understand my concerns regarding recent developments. I understand you're worried about power consolidation, Naruto replied diplomatically. Shikamaru had coached him extensively for this meeting. But I assure you, I'm not building a military dynasty. I'm starting a family. A family that will produce children with unprecedented abilities, the daimyo countered. Children who will be trained as shinobi, who will have the Hokage as their father, and the Uchiha bloodline as their heritage. You must see how this appears to the other nations. What would you have me do? Naruto asked, keeping his voice level despite his frustration. Not have children? Abandon the Uchiha clan to extinction? Pretend the prophecy doesn't exist? I would have you provide assurances, the daimyo said. Safeguards against these children becoming tools of war or sources of instability. Perhaps agreements about their future roles, limitations on how many can become active shinobi simultaneously, oversight into their training. Absolutely not, Naruto interrupted, his patience snapping. These are my children we're talking about. Human beings, not weapons to be regulated and controlled. I won't agree to any policies that treat them as threats before they're even born. The daimyo's expression hardened. Then perhaps we need to discuss whether someone in your position should have created this situation in the first place. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Naruto stood slowly, his blue eyes blazing with barely contained fury. Around him, The air crackled with chakra, not threatening, but impossible to ignore. Listen carefully, Naruto said, his voice deadly quiet. I have saved this world more times than I can count. I have sacrificed my childhood, my safety, and nearly my life repeatedly for peace. And now that peace exists, now that I have a chance at happiness, at family, you want me to apologize for it? To treat my unborn children like they're problems to be solved? He leaned forward, hands planted on the table. I am the Hokage. I protect this village and everyone in it. That includes my family. My children will be raised with love and guidance. They'll be taught to use their abilities responsibly. But they will not be treated as threats or subjected to special restrictions just because of their parentage. If that's a problem for you, then we have a much bigger problem to address. The daimyo stared at him for a long moment before his expression shifted to something that might have been respect. You're quite passionate about this. Damn right I am, Naruto replied. Good, the daimyo said, surprising him. That's what I needed to hear. I had to know whether you were entering this arrangement with the right mindset, as a father concerned for his children's well-being, or as a leader building a power base. You've answered that question clearly. Naruto blinked, realizing he'd been tested. So this whole thing was a necessary evaluation, the daimyo confirmed. The prophecy creates complications beyond anything we've dealt with in generations. But if the Hokage approaches fatherhood with the same dedication he's shown to protecting the village, then perhaps these children will indeed be the guardians they're prophesied to become. He stood, formal demeanor relaxing slightly. You have my support, Hokage-sama. But know that the other nations will not be so easily convinced. You'll face opposition, suspicion, and possibly threats targeting your family. Be prepared for that. After the daimyo left, Naruto slumped in his chair, emotionally exhausted. Shikamaru emerged from where he'd been observing silently. Well handled, his advisor said. Though maybe next time don't threaten the daimyo with barely restrained chakra. I didn't threaten him, Naruto protested. Your chakra was literally making the walls vibrate. Okay, maybe a little threatening. They both laughed, the tension breaking. But Shikamaru's next words sobered them both. He was right about the threats, though. We need to increase security around the compound, and we should consider having you and your wives training in coordinated combat styles in case of attacks. Already ahead of you, Naruto said. Suki's been working on group tactics. Apparently, the Uchiha used to have formation techniques specifically designed for multiple Sharingan users working together, combined with my shadow clones and the other specialties. You're building a squad that could take on small armies, Shikamaru finished. Troublesome, but practical. Over the next month, training became a regular part of the compound's routine. Naruto discovered that his wives were even more formidable than he'd realized. Izumi's genjutsu could trap multiple opponents simultaneously. Rin's medical ninjutsu included devastating offensive techniques she'd learned in the Land of Water. Suki's taijutsu style, combined with her Sharingan's predictive abilities, made her nearly impossible to land a hit on. Akane, despite her years away from active duty, still had sharp instincts and powerful fire techniques. Kaori's precise chakra control allowed her to target enemies' pressure points with frightening accuracy. Yuki's raw power and aggressive fighting style complemented the others' more refined approaches. And Mikoto fought with the experience of someone who'd lived through the Third Shinobi War, her techniques polished by decades of practice. When they trained together, coordinating their attacks with Naruto's overwhelming chakra and versatility, they formed a unit that even Kakashi admitted would give him pause. You've created a small army, his former sensei observed during one training session, watching as Izumi's genjutsu created openings for Yuki's fire techniques, which Naruto then amplified with wind release, while Suki and Rin provided tactical support, and Kaori stood ready with medical intervention. I'm not sure whether to be proud or concerned. Be both, Naruto suggested. That's what I am. As Naomi entered her second trimester, the pregnancy began showing. Her small frame made even slight changes obvious, and the reality of impending parenthood became impossible to ignore. The entire household seemed to revolve around her well-being. Kaori monitored her constantly, Mikoto ensured she rested adequately, Akane prepared nutritious meals, and Naruto himself was absurdly overprotective. I can still walk across a room without assistance, Naomi protested one evening when Naruto tried to help her from her chair. I know, you're carrying precious cargo, Naruto said sheepishly. You're adorable when you're overprotective, Izumi commented from her reading corner. Also incredibly annoying. The comment sparked laughter, easing the tension that had been building. Pregnancy had brought the household closer together in unexpected ways. They were truly becoming a family, not just people bound by prophecy. One evening, as the household gathered for their daily meal, Yuki suddenly spoke up. I want to try for a child too. Silence fell over the table. All eyes turned to the youngest wife, whose cheeks flushed but whose gaze remained defiant. Yuki, Rin began. I'm 20 years old, Yuki interrupted. I know I'm the youngest besides Naomi, but I'm not a child. And She looked at Naruto. I want this. I want to be part of building this future. I don't want to wait just because others think I'm too young. Naruto set down his chopsticks, considering his words carefully. This isn't about whether you're capable. You're strong, determined, and you'd make an amazing mother. But are you sure this is what you want right now? Once you're pregnant, your training will be limited, your body will change, your priorities will shift. I know all that, Yuki said firmly. I've watched Naomi go through the first months. I've heard all the medical concerns. I've seen how the village reacts, how stressful it is. And I still want this. Actually, I want it more because of all that. I want to prove that we can do this, that the prophecy wasn't a mistake, that we're building something worth building. The other wives exchanged glances, silent communication passing between them. Finally, Mikoto spoke. If this is truly your choice, we'll support you. But you need to understand, having multiple pregnancies in the household simultaneously will strain our resources and attention. We'll need to adjust our plans. I can help more with Naomi, Akane offered. My son is becoming more independent, and I have experience with pregnancy and infant care. And I can intensify my studies on Uchiha pregnancy complications, Kaori added. Having multiple cases to study might actually help us develop better protocols. Slowly, the others voiced their support. Naruto watched the exchange, marveling at how these 7 women had learned to work together, to support each other's choices even when those choices complicated everything. Okay, he said finally. If everyone's on board, then we'll move forward. Yuki's expression transformed from defiant to joyful. She practically launched herself at Naruto in an enthusiastic hug that made everyone laugh. 2 weeks later, Yuki confirmed her pregnancy. The household erupted in celebration and immediate planning adjustments. Now they had 2 expectant mothers, 2 sets of medical protocols, 2 nurseries to prepare. At this rate, we'll have 7 babies before the year is out, Suki joked one evening. Don't even suggest that, Rin replied, though her tone was fond. 2 simultaneous pregnancies is already stretching our capabilities. But as the weeks passed, a pattern emerged. The household functioned better with the challenge. Everyone had clear roles and responsibilities. The pregnant wives were supported while maintaining their independence. Naruto split his time as effectively as possible between Hokage duties and family life. And slowly, impossibly, it all started to feel normal. Normal, that is, until the first real threat emerged. It was late evening when the alarm seals activated. Naruto felt the warning through his connection to the compound's security network. Intruders, multiple signatures, approaching from 3 directions. He was moving before conscious thought, shadow clones deploying while his real body headed for the main hall where his wives gathered in response to the alarm. How many? Suki asked immediately, her Sharingan already active. At least 20, Naruto replied grimly. And they're not trying to hide. This is a direct assault. On the Hokage's residence? Izumi's eyes narrowed. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both, Rin said, medical bag already in hand. Naomi and Yuki, you're staying inside with Akane and Kenji. The rest of us are handling this. The pregnant women started to protest, but Mikoto cut them off. Non-negotiable. You're carrying the future we're building. Your job is to protect those babies. Ours is to protect you. Naomi and Yuki reluctantly agreed, retreating to the most secure room in the compound with Akane and her son as guards. Naruto and the remaining 5 wives moved to intercept the intruders. As they reached the compound's perimeter, the attackers emerged from the shadows, masked shinobi wearing no village insignia, their movements coordinated and professional. Mercenaries, Suki assessed immediately. Well-trained ones? Looking for the Uchiha, one of the attackers called out, his voice distorted by a mask. Hand over the pregnant ones, and the rest of you can live. Naruto stepped forward, his chakra flaring visibly, making the air shimmer. Here's a counteroffer. Leave now, and I won't turn you into a crater. The attacker laughed. The Hokage, so predictable. Willing to risk everything for. He never finished the sentence. Izumi's genjutsu caught him mid-word, and he dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The other attackers reacted instantly, scattering and attacking from multiple angles. What followed was a masterclass in coordinated combat. Mikoto's fire techniques created walls of flame that channeled enemies into kill zones. Rin's water release countered their attempts to spread out. Suki engaged in close combat, her Sharingan predicting and countering every attack. Izumi's genjutsu created confusion and openings. Kori, despite being their medic, proved devastatingly effective at incapacitating opponents with precise strikes to pressure points. And Naruto was everywhere at once, his shadow clones overwhelming through sheer numbers while his real body coordinated the defense, his Rasengan and various techniques making short work of anyone who got too close. The battle was over in minutes. The attackers lay unconscious or bound, their mission a complete failure. Anbu arrived moments later, having been alerted by the security seals, and began processing the prisoners. We need to interrogate them immediately, Naruto said to Ibiki, who had arrived to oversee the capture. Find out who sent them and if there are more attacks planned. Already on it, Hokage-sama, Ibiki replied grimly. But I suspect we both know what we're going to find. Someone testing your defenses, seeing how far they can push before you push back. Naruto looked back at the compound where his pregnant wives were sheltered, where the future of two clans was growing. They picked the wrong family to test, he said quietly. Inside, after the all-clear was given, the household gathered again. Naomi and Yuki were shaken but unharmed. The others carried minor injuries that Kaori and Rin quickly treated. This won't be the last attack, Mikoto said quietly. We need to accept that we're now targets. All of us, especially the children to come. Then we adapt, Naruto replied firmly. We strengthen security, improve our coordination, prepare for anything. But we don't let fear stop us from building this family. That's exactly what they want. Agreed, Izumi said, and the others nodded. As the household settled in for the night, extra guards posted and security seals reinforced, Naruto found himself in Naomi's room. The young woman was trying to hide her fear, one hand protectively over her stomach. I'm scared, she admitted. Not just for me, but for our baby. What kind of world are we bringing children into? Naruto sat beside her, covering her hand with his. The same world I grew up in, one with darkness, but also light. One where threats exist, but so does protection. Our children will face challenges because of who they are, yes. But they'll also have something I never did growing up. A family, parents who love them, aunts who'll protect them, a village that will stand behind them. He felt the baby kick against his palm, a tiny movement that made his breath catch. This little one already has 7 mothers and one very determined father, plus uncles like Sasuke and Kakashi, aunts like Sakura and Hinata, and an entire village of people who'll watch them grow. That's not a bad start. Naomi smiled through her tears. You're right. We're building something stronger than any threat could break. They sat together in the quiet darkness, feeling the life growing between them, and in that moment, despite the attack and the uncertainty, Naruto felt hope. Not the desperate hope of his childhood, but something solid and real, the hope of a future worth fighting for. In the days following the attack, Ibiki's interrogation revealed what they'd suspected. The mercenaries had been hired by a coalition of minor villages worried about power consolidation in Konoha. The attack wasn't meant to succeed, it was meant to send a message and test their defenses. They got their answer, Naruto told the council during a security briefing. We're not vulnerable, and we won't be intimidated. But this also proves that we need to be transparent about our intentions. The other villages need to understand we're not building a weapon, we're building a family. Transparency only works if they're willing to listen, Shikamaru pointed out. Some will see what they want to see regardless of our explanations. Then we prove them wrong, Naruto replied. Through our actions, through how we raise these children, through the relationships we build with other villages. It'll take time, but it's the only real solution. Sasuke, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. I can help with that. As the other surviving Uchiha, my endorsement of this arrangement carries weight. I'll make it clear that I support this union and believe in what you're building. It was a significant offer, and Naruto recognized it as such. Sasuke had his own complicated relationship with the world's perception of him, and publicly backing Naruto's unconventional family would invite scrutiny. Thank you, Naruto said sincerely. The following month brought unexpected visitors to Konoha. Gaara arrived from the sand, accompanied by Temari and Kankuro. The Kazekage's visit was officially diplomatic, but his first request was to meet Naruto's family privately. They gathered in the Uchiha compound's reception hall, all 7 wives, with Naomi now obviously pregnant, and Yuki beginning to show as well. Gaara studied them with his characteristic intensity before speaking. When I heard about this arrangement, I'll admit I was skeptical, Gaara said. It seemed like either a political maneuver or something born of prophecy rather than genuine feeling. But seeing you all together, I understand better. Understand what? Naruto asked. That you've created a family in the truest sense, Gaara replied. Not bound by conventional definitions, but by choice and commitment. As someone who knows what it means to be judged for circumstances beyond your control, I wanted to offer my support publicly. That means a lot, Naruto said. Especially coming from you. Gaara turned to the wives. You should know that some will view you as tools in a power scheme, or as victims of an arrangement you couldn't refuse. How do you respond to that perception? Izumi stepped forward, speaking for the group. We respond by living our truth. Each of us chose this path knowing the complications and challenges. We're not victims, and we're not pawns. We're women building a future we believe in, on our own terms. Even knowing your children will face scrutiny and expectations that aren't fair? Temari asked, her tone genuinely curious rather than accusatory. Especially knowing that, Makoto replied. Because those children will have something many of us didn't, a strong foundation of love and support to face those challenges. They won't be alone the way too many of us were. The conversation continued for hours, covering everything from political implications to personal motivations to practical concerns about raising children with unprecedented abilities. By the time Gaara and his siblings left, they'd pledged Suna's support, and promised to help counter negative narratives in the international community. One ally at a time, Shikamaru commented after they'd gone. It's a start. As Naomi entered her 3rd trimester, the reality of impending parenthood became impossible to ignore. The nursery was completed, decorated in soft colors with both Uzumaki and Uchiha symbols worked into the design. Baby clothes accumulated from well-wishers across the village. Sakura and Kaori finalized their delivery protocols, accounting for every possible complication. And Naruto found himself increasingly terrified. What if I mess this up? He confided to Kakashi one evening during a rare quiet moment in the Hokage's office. What if I'm a terrible father? I never had one to learn from. Kakashi set down the mission report he was reviewing. You know, your father once told me something similar before you were born. He was convinced he'd somehow fail you, that being Hokage meant he couldn't be the father you deserved. Really? Naruto leaned forward, hungry for any connection to Minato. Really? I told him that the fact he was worried about it meant he'd probably do fine. People who don't care don't worry. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled with a smile. The same applies to you. You're already thinking about how to be present, how to support your wives, how to protect your children while letting them grow. That's more than many fathers manage. But what if the child inherits my stupidity instead of their mother's intelligence? Naruto worried. Then they'll also inherit your determination, your capacity for growth, and your ability to connect with people, Kakashi replied. Besides, with 7 mothers involved, I think the odds are in the child's favor for at least some intelligence. Despite the humor, Naruto appreciated the reassurance. The fear didn't disappear, but it became more manageable. 2 weeks before Naomi's due date, Rin made an announcement that surprised everyone. She'd been conducting research in secret, and the results were significant. I think I've discovered something about the genetic combination we're creating, she said during a family meeting, spreading out her research notes. The Uzumaki vitality doesn't just enhance physical stamina. It appears to stabilize the Sharingan's chakra drain and emotional volatility. Meaning? Suki asked. Meaning the children might be able to use their Sharingan without the typical drawbacks. Rin explained. Less chakra consumption, more emotional stability. Potentially even slowing or preventing the degradation that led to the need for Mangekyo's Sharingan in the past. The implications were staggering. One of the Uchiha clan's greatest weaknesses, the physical and emotional toll of their own power, might be mitigated in the next generation. We won't know for certain until the children are old enough to awaken their Sharingan, Kaori cautioned. But if Rin's theory is correct, this could be revolutionary. It could also make the children even bigger targets, Sasuke said quietly. He'd been listening from the doorway, his expression troubled. If word gets out that these children have Sharingan without the traditional weaknesses, we keep it quiet, Naruto said firmly. This information stays within the family until the children are old enough to protect themselves. Everyone agreed, but the discovery added another layer of complexity to an already complicated situation. 3 days before Naomi's due date, she went into labor. It happened suddenly. One moment she was helping Akane with dinner preparation, the next she was doubled over, her water breaking as contractions began. The compound erupted into controlled chaos. Kaori and Sakura immediately took charge, guiding Naomi to the medical room they'd prepared specifically for this moment. Rin assisted while the other wives scrambled to their assigned positions. Naruto, despite all his training and preparation, found himself paralyzed with fear. Naruto! Mikoto grabbed his arm, shaking him from his stupor. She needs you. Get in there. He stumbled into the medical room where Naomi lay on the bed, her face contorted with pain but her eyes seeking his. He rushed to her side, taking her hand. I'm here, he said. I'm right here. It hurts, Naomi gasped between contractions. No one said it would hurt this much. Everyone said it would hurt this much, Izumi corrected gently from where she stood nearby. You just didn't believe them. Despite the pain, Naomi managed a weak laugh. The labor lasted 7 hours, an eternity for Naruto, though Sakura assured him it was actually quite fast for a first pregnancy. Through it all, Naomi proved tougher than anyone had given her credit for. She breathed through contractions, followed instructions, and somehow maintained her composure even when her Sharingan activated involuntarily due to the stress. The baby's crowning, Sakura announced. Naomi, on the next contraction, push with everything you've got. Naomi screamed, her hand crushing Naruto's, her chakra flaring as the Sharingan spun wildly. For a terrifying moment, her chakra spiked dangerously, and the babies responded in kind, 2 chakra systems suddenly clashing as the infant fought to enter the world. Stabilize her! Kaori shouted, her hands glowing with medical chakra as she worked to balance Naomi's systems. Naruto acted on instinct, flooding Naomi with his own chakra, the Ninetales chakra, warm and stabilizing, wrapping around both mother and child like a protective blanket. The hostile spike calmed, harmonized, and suddenly, a baby's cry filled the room. It's a boy, Sakura announced, tears streaming down her face as she held up the screaming infant. A healthy baby boy. Naomi collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted but radiant. Sakura quickly cleaned and wrapped the baby before placing him in his mother's arms. Naruto stared at his son, actually stared, unable to process what he was seeing. The baby had a shock of blonde hair, but his eyes, when they briefly opened, showed the dark color that might eventually develop into the Sharingan. He was tiny, wrinkled, and absolutely perfect. We did it, Naomi whispered, looking up at Naruto with pure joy. We have a son. We have a son, Naruto repeated, his voice breaking. He reached out with one trembling finger, and the baby's tiny hand wrapped around it with surprising strength. Hey there, little guy. I'm your dad. The other wives crowded in, each wanting to see the baby. Mikoto had tears streaming down her face. Izumi wore a soft smile. Even Yuki, usually so energetic and loud, was quiet with awe. Have you thought about a name? Sakura asked. Naruto and Naomi exchanged glances. They'd discussed this extensively over the previous months. Takeshi, Naomi said softly. Takeshi Uzumaki Uchiha. It means fierce warrior, but also bamboo, something that bends but never breaks. Takeshi, Naruto repeated, testing the name. I like it. Takashi Uzumaki Uchiha. Over the next few days, the compound transformed around the new arrival. Takashi proved to be a relatively calm baby, though his chakra fluctuations kept Kaori monitoring him constantly. His physical development was accelerated. By 3 days old, he could already focus his eyes better than most week-old infants. And on his 5th day of life, during a routine examination, Sakura made a startling discovery. His chakra pathways, she said, her expression somewhere between amazed and concerned. They're already more developed than they should be at this age. Not dangerously so, but significantly advanced. Is that because of the Uzumaki vitality? Rin asked, studying the readings. Partially. But there's something else. Sakura showed them her findings. His chakra has a unique signature. It's like the Uzumaki and Uchiha chakra types have merged rather than just existing side by side. I've never seen anything like it. What does that mean for his future abilities? Naruto asked, holding his sleeping son carefully. We don't know yet, Kaori admitted. This is completely unprecedented territory. We'll need to monitor him closely as he grows. That night, Naruto sat in the nursery with Takashi sleeping in his arms. The compound was quiet, his wives having finally convinced him to take a solo shift so they could rest. The baby's small chest rose and fell rhythmically, and Naruto found himself memorizing every detail. The small nose, the perfectly formed fingers, the way his son's expression changed even in sleep. Your mom's incredible, you know, Naruto whispered. She brought you into this world with more courage than I've seen on any battlefield. And you've got 6 more mothers who already love you just as much. You're going to be so spoiled. Takashi made a small sound, not quite waking, and Naruto smiled. I'm going to do my best by you, he continued. I won't be perfect. I'm definitely going to mess up sometimes. But I promise you'll always know you're loved. You'll always have a family, and whatever challenges you face because of who you are, we'll face them together. The nursery door opened quietly, and Yuki slipped in, her own pregnancy now quite visible. Couldn't sleep, she whispered. Thought I'd check on both of you. She settled into the chair beside Naruto's, gazing at the baby with soft eyes. He's beautiful. And terrifying. In a few months, I'll have one of these, and I have no idea what I'm doing. None of us do, Naruto assured her. We're all just figuring it out as we go. That's supposed to be comforting? Kind of? They shared a quiet laugh, and Yuki reached out to gently touch Takashi's hand. Thank you, she said suddenly. For agreeing to this, for taking this chance on all of us. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you for taking a chance on me, Naruto replied. I never imagined I'd have this, any of this. A family, children, people who chose to stay. Yuki leaned her head against his shoulder, and they sat together in the peaceful darkness, watching Takashi sleep and thinking about the future growing within the compound's walls. The prophecy had spoken of 7 flames joining with the spiral. The first spark had been lit, and already it burned brighter than anyone had expected. 6 more flames awaited their time, and with them, the promise of a future that would reshape the shinobi world. But for now, there was just this moment, a father holding his son, a mother to be dreaming of her own child, and the quiet certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As a family, 3 months had passed since Takashi's birth, and the Uchiha compound had transformed into something that resembled organized chaos. The baby's accelerated development continued to astound the medical team. At 3 months, he had the awareness and physical control of a 6-month-old. His eyes had begun showing the earliest hints of the Sharingan's characteristic red tint, though the Tomo hadn't manifested yet. And now Yuki was in labor. Unlike Naomi's relatively smooth delivery, Yuki's labor proved difficult from the start. Her contractions were irregular, her chakra fluctuated wildly with her fiery temperament, and she fought against the pain rather than working with it. You need to breathe through it, not against it, Sakura coached for the 10th time, her patience wearing thin. Don't tell me how to breathe, Yuki snapped, her Sharingan flaring to life as another contraction hit. Fire chakra sparked at her fingertips, setting the edge of the bedsheets smoldering. Naruto quickly extinguished it with a small water technique. Babe, you're literally setting the room on fire. Maybe dial it back a bit, maybe try pushing a human out of your body, and see how calm you are. Yuki retorted, but her grip on his hand softened slightly. I'm sorry. This hurts so much more than I expected. I know, Naruto said gently, remembering Naomi's similar complaints. But you're doing great. You're the strongest person I know, you can do this. 12 hours later, Yuki finally delivered a baby girl. Unlike Takeshi's relatively calm entry into the world, this child came out screaming with a fury that matched her mother's temperament. Her chakra signature was even more volatile than Takeshi's. Kaori had to immediately stabilize both mother and daughter as their chakra systems clashed and harmonized. She's perfect, Yuki gasped, tears streaming down her face as she held her daughter. The baby had dark hair like her mother but showed hints of blonde in certain lights. Absolutely perfect. Have you chosen a name? Mikoto asked softly, standing beside the bed with the others. Yuki looked at Naruto, who nodded encouragingly. Akari, she said. Akari Uzumaki Uchiha. It means light or brightness, because even in the darkness of everything our clans have suffered, she's a light pointing toward the future. It's beautiful, Naomi said, holding Takeshi carefully as she approached to see the new baby. Takeshi and Akari. The first two of the next generation. As the household celebrated Akari's arrival, messengers from across the shinobi world arrived with congratulations and gifts. But along with the well-wishes came increased attention and scrutiny. The birth of two children in quick succession had made the reality of Naruto's unusual family impossible to ignore. We need to address this publicly, Shikamaru said during a council meeting a week after Akari's birth. The rumors are getting out of hand. Some say you're breeding super soldiers. Others claim you're trying to resurrect the Uchiha clan to dominate the other villages. We need a unified message. What kind of message? Naruto asked, exhausted from another night of split shifts with two babies in the compound. A ceremony, Kakashi suggested. Something that officially recognizes your family unit, while emphasizing the peaceful intentions behind it. Show the world that this is about building a future, not consolidating power. We already had a wedding ceremony, Naruto pointed out. That was private, witnessed by close friends and family, Kakashi countered. I'm talking about a public celebration. Something that includes the entire village, with representatives from other nations invited. Make it impossible for anyone to claim this is being done in secret or with malicious intent. Naruto looked to his wives, who had been listening from their seats along the wall. What do you think? Izumi spoke first. It's risky. Public ceremonies invite public judgment. But Kakashi's right, secrecy breeds suspicion. If we're going to do this, we might as well own it completely. I agree, Rin added. And it gives us a chance to establish the narrative rather than letting others define us. Plus, I wouldn't mind a proper celebration, Suki said with a slight smile. One that honors all of us, not just the prophecy that brought us together. The others voiced their agreement, and planning began for what would become known as the Ceremony of Flames, a grand celebration combining Uzumaki and Uchiha traditions, meant to officially inaugurate the new clan alliance and introduce the next generation to the shinobi world. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 months later, giving everyone time to prepare. The interval proved necessary, coordinating traditions from two ancient clans while accommodating modern political sensibilities was a monumental task. Naruto discovered that Uchiha ceremonies were elaborate affairs steeped in symbolism. There were ritual purifications, ancestral acknowledgements, fire dances, and complex protocols for everything from seating arrangements to the order of speeches. This is insane, Naruto complained one evening as Mikoto walked him through yet another ceremonial element. Why do we need 7 different types of incense burned in a specific sequence? Because each incense represents one of the 7 original Uchiha family lines, Mikoto explained patiently. It's a way of honoring the past while building the future. Think of it as showing respect to those who came before. When you put it that way, Naruto softened. He understood honoring the past. He'd built his entire life on the legacies left by those who came before him. The Uzumaki traditions were different but no less complex. Where the Uchiha focused on fire and ancestral honor, the Uzumaki emphasized life force, renewal, and the cyclical nature of existence. Their ceremonies involved water, representing adaptability and flow, and spirals, representing the endless cycle of growth. We could combine them, Naomi suggested during a planning session. Fire and water, spirals and flames. Make it truly representative of the union we've created. The symbolism would be powerful, Izumi agreed. Fire and water don't typically mix, but through careful balance, they can coexist. Steam rising from their meeting could represent the new possibilities we're creating. The idea took hold, and the ceremony's design began incorporating both elements. A special platform would be constructed over the river that ran through Konoha, with fire braziers placed strategically to create steam that would rise as the ceremony progressed. The visual effect would be stunning, and the metaphor clear, two opposing forces finding harmony. Invitations went out to all 5 major villages, as well as dozens of minor villages and important political figures. To everyone's surprise, most accepted. The Kazekage confirmed his attendance immediately, as did the Mizukichi. Even the Tsuchikage and Reikage, traditionally more skeptical of Konoha's activities, sent word they would send representatives. They're curious, Shikamaru assessed. This is unprecedented in modern shinobi history. They want to see it with their own eyes. As the ceremony date approached, Konoha transformed. Decorations appeared throughout the village, red and orange banners bearing both the Uzumaki spiral and Uchiha fan. Vendors prepared special foods combining fire country and water country cuisines, honoring both clans' origins. The academy gave students a project to learn about clan alliances throughout history, turning the ceremony into an educational opportunity. But not everyone was pleased. Protests erupted in some quarters. Traditionalists who viewed the arrangement as improper, isolationists who saw it as unnecessary foreign attention, and a small but vocal group who feared the concentration of power in one family. Let them protest, Naruto said when Shikamaru reported the disturbances. As long as they stay peaceful, they have every right to their opinions. We're not doing this to silence dissent. We're doing it to show there's another way forward. The week before the ceremony, all 5 wives who were nursing infants, Naomi and Yuki, remained focused on Takeshi and Akari, joined Naruto for intensive training. Not combat training this time, but ceremonial practice. The ceremony would require precise choreography. Each wife would approach individually to speak vows before the assembled crowd, then come together in a final unified declaration. They practiced the movements until they could perform them flawlessly, the transitions smooth and meaningful. This feels like performance art, Suki muttered during one practice session. It is performance art, Rin replied. We're performing the narrative of our family for public consumption. Every movement, every word, every gesture will be analyzed and interpreted. We need to be perfect. The night before the ceremony, Naruto found himself unable to sleep. He wandered the compound, checking on his sleeping children, pausing at each wife's door, feeling the weight of what tomorrow would bring. He ended up in the shrine room that Mikoto had established, a space dedicated to honoring the Uchiha who had died in the massacre. Candles flickered before tablets bearing their names, and the Uchiha fan hung prominently on the wall. Can't sleep either? Sasuke's voice came from the doorway. Naruto turned to find his best friend leaning against the frame, his expression contemplative. What are you doing here? It's past midnight. Same thing you're doing, thinking about tomorrow, about what it all means. Sasuke entered and stood beside him, looking at the memorial tablets. My mother's name used to be on one of these tablets. Now she's alive, part of your family, about to participate in a ceremony that will change everything. It's surreal. Do you wish things were different? Naruto asked quietly. That the prophecy never happened, that your clan could have been restored some other way? Sasuke was silent for a long moment. I spent years wishing things were different. Wishing the massacre never happened. Wishing I could change the past. Wishing I could somehow bring everyone back. But wishing doesn't change reality. What you're doing, what all of you are doing, that's the only real path forward I've seen. You're not just rebuilding the clan. You're transforming it, creating something new from the ashes. He turned to face Naruto directly. Tomorrow, you're going to stand before the world and claim this family publicly. It's going to make you vulnerable in ways you haven't been before. People will judge, criticize, potentially attack. Are you ready for that? No, Naruto admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. Because this family, these women, these children, they're worth any judgment or criticism. Good answer, Sasuke said with a rare smile. For what it's worth, you have my complete support. Not just as your friend, but as the head of the Uchiha clan. What you're building honors those we lost better than any revenge or isolation ever could. They stood together in the shrine room, surrounded by the names of the dead, knowing that tomorrow would begin a new chapter for both their clans. The morning of the ceremony dawned clear and bright. The entire village seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. By noon, guests from across the shinobi world had assembled. The Kazakage with Temari and Kankuro, the Mizukage with her guards, representatives from the Tsuchikage and Reikage, countless nobles, clan heads from throughout the Fire Country, and what seemed like half of Konoha's population. The ceremony platform had been constructed over the river, exactly as planned. Fire braziers lined the edges, their flames reflected in the water below. As the sun reached its peak, the ceremony began. Kakashi, as the former 6th Hokage and Naruto's teacher, served as the primary officiant. He stood at the center of the platform, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd through chakra amplification. "We gathered today to witness and celebrate an unprecedented union," Kakashi began. "The joining of two great clans, Uzumaki and Uchiha, in a family born not of tradition alone, but of prophecy, choice, and hope for the future. Let all who bear witness understand that what we honor today is not the concentration of power, but the creation of bonds that transcend the old cycles of hatred and isolation." The 7 wives emerged first, each dressed in elaborate ceremonial attire that combined elements of both clans. Their kimonos featured the Uzumaki spiral and Uchiha fan worked together in intricate patterns, the colors ranging from deep crimson to brilliant orange, with gold and silver threading that caught the sunlight. They walked in a specific order, Mikoto first as the eldest, then Izumi, Rin, Suki, Akane, Kaori, and finally Yuki. Despite her youth, each took her place on the platform in a carefully arranged formation that created a semicircle. Then Naruto emerged, and the crowd stirred. He wore formal Hokage robes modified for the ceremony, the traditional white and red, but with Uchiha fan symbols incorporated into the design alongside the Uzumaki spiral. The effect was striking, a visual representation of the unity being celebrated. He walked to the center of the platform, facing his wives, with Kakashi to his side. "Naruto Uzumaki, 7th Hokage of Konohagakure," Kakashi intoned formally. "You stand before these witnesses to pledge yourself to this family, to these women who have chosen to bind their lives to yours. Speak your intentions clearly, that all may understand the foundation of this union." Naruto took a deep breath, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I stand here not as Hokage, but as a man who has found family in the most unexpected way. These 7 women before me are not trophies or tools or means to an end. They are partners, mothers, warriors, healers, teachers, individuals who chose to take a chance on building something new together." He gestured to each wife as he continued. "Mikoto, who carries the wisdom of the past and helps us honor it while moving forward. Izumi, whose strength comes from turning pain into purpose. Rin, whose knowledge bridges the gap between what was and what could be. Suki, whose unwavering dedication reminds us why we fight. Akane, who proves that family transcends blood and extends to those we choose. Kaori, whose healing touch mends more than just physical wounds. And Yuki, whose fire ensures we never settle for less than we deserve." The crowd was utterly silent, hanging on every word. "I pledge myself to each of you individually and to all of you collectively," Naruto continued, "to honor your choices, support your dreams, protect our family, and raise our children to be better than the generations that came before. This I vow before the Sage of 6 Paths, before Konoha, and before the world." Now it was the wives' turn. One by one, they stepped forward to speak their own vows. Each had written their own, personal and unique to their relationship with Naruto and their vision for the family. Mikoto spoke of second chances and the courage to embrace an unexpected future. Izumi talked about finding real love after living a lifetime in illusion. Rin discussed the importance of creating legacy through action rather than lineage alone. Suki pledged unwavering loyalty and dedication to protecting what they were building. Akane spoke of how family could heal old wounds and create new beginnings. Kaori vowed to use her knowledge to ensure their children's health and well-being. Yuki, last to speak, declared with characteristic fire that she would burn away any threat to their family's happiness. Their words resonated with the crowd. Even the skeptics seemed moved by the genuine emotion and commitment on display. After the individual vows, the 7 wives came together, joining hands in a circle with Naruto at the center. Kakashi raised his hands, and the fire braziers flared higher, their heat causing the river water below to visibly steam, rising around the platform like a curtain. By the ancient rites of the Uchiha clan, Kakashi intoned by the sacred traditions of the Uzumaki, and by the authority vested in me as witness to this union, I declare this family bound in law, in spirit, and in purpose. May the flames of the Uchiha and the currents of the Uzumaki flow together, creating something greater than either alone. The steam rose higher, and through careful chakra manipulation by several hidden ANBU, it began forming shapes, spirals and fans intertwining in the air above the platform. The visual effect was breathtaking. Then came the presentation of the children. Naomi and Akane, who had been waiting in the wings, emerged carrying Takeshi and Akari respectively. The babies were dressed in miniature versions of the ceremonial attire, and despite the crowd and unusual situation, both remained remarkably calm. Behold the first fruits of this union, Kakashi announced. Takeshi and Akari Uzumaki Uchiha, born of prophecy and love, carrying the legacy of 2 great clans into a new era. The crowd erupted in applause. Even those who had harbored doubts seemed moved by the sight of the 2 infants, tangible proof that this unusual arrangement was creating new life rather than simply consolidating power. Gaara stepped forward from the crowd, his position as Kazekage giving him the right to speak. On behalf of Sunagakure and as a friend to both clans, I offer our blessing and support to this family. May the bonds forged here today strengthen the peace between our nations. The Mizukage followed, then representatives from the other villages, each offering formal recognition and support. It was unprecedented. The entire shinobi world, historically divided and suspicious, coming together to acknowledge and bless this union. After the formal ceremony concluded, the celebration began. The platform was cleared, and the area transformed into a massive festival ground. Food stalls offered delicacies from across the nations. Performers demonstrated traditional dances from both Uchiha and Uzumaki cultures. Children played games while adults discussed politics and the future. Naruto found himself pulled in a dozen directions, accepting congratulations, making small talk with dignitaries, trying to sneak moments with his wives and children amid the chaos. At one point, he stood with Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari, watching the festivities. "You've done something remarkable," Gaara said quietly. "Not just creating a family, but forcing the shinobi world to reconsider what family and alliance can mean." "I'm just trying to build something good," Naruto replied. "Everything else is just happening around that." "That's what makes it work," Temari observed. "It's genuine. If this seemed calculated or political, it would fall apart. But you're clearly doing this for the right reasons." "Doesn't mean it'll be easy," Kankuro added. "You've put your family in the spotlight. Every move they make will be scrutinized." "I know," Naruto said, watching Yuki laugh at something Suki said while Mikoto held Akari and Naomi chatted with Sakura while holding Takeshi. "But they're strong. We'll handle whatever comes." As evening fell, lanterns were lit throughout the festival grounds, creating a warm glow that rivaled the setting sun. The ceremony's final element approached, the flame spiral dance, a choreographed performance combining Uchiha fire techniques with Uzumaki wind manipulation. The 7 wives took positions around a central fire pit. As music began, traditional instruments playing the melody that had been specifically composed for this occasion, they began to move. Their dance was elegant and precise, each movement flowing into the next. As they danced, they wove hand signs, and fire spiraled up from the pit, taking shape in the air above them. Naruto joined them, adding his wind chakra to the display. The flames began moving in spiral patterns, the Uchiha fire shaped by Uzumaki wind into a visual representation of their union. The effect was mesmerizing. Fire that moved like water, spirals that burned like passion, elements that shouldn't coexist creating something beautiful together. The crowd watched in awed silence as the dance continued, the fire spirals growing larger and more complex until they filled the entire sky above the festival grounds. And then, at the climax of the music, the flames suddenly compressed, forming a single massive symbol. The Uzumaki spiral and Uchiha fan perfectly merged, burning bright against the darkening sky. The symbol held for a long moment, then burst apart into thousands of tiny flames that gently descended like fireflies, harmless and beautiful, drifting over the crowd before fading away. The applause was thunderous. People cheered, some cried, and even the most hardened shinobi seemed moved by the display. It was more than just a beautiful performance. It was a statement, a promise, a declaration that something new and unprecedented had been born. As the festival continued into the night, Naruto finally managed to steal away with his wives to a quiet corner of the compound. They collapsed together, exhausted but exhilarated. "We did it," Naomi said, still holding a sleeping Takashi. "We actually did it." "The ceremony's done," Rin corrected gently. "Now comes the real work. Living up to what we proclaimed today, we'll manage," Izumi said confidently. "We've come this far together. The rest is just persistence. And love," Mikoto added, smiling at each of them. "Never underestimate what love can accomplish." Naruto looked at his family, his 7 wives, his 2 children, and the future stretching out before them. The prophecy had spoken of unity, of guardians for a new era, of bridges built between light and shadow. Today, they'd shown the world that prophecy was becoming reality. But prophecies were just words until people gave them life. And this family, this unusual, unconventional, unprecedented family, was determined to build something that exceeded any ancient prediction. As the last of the festival-goers departed and Konoha settled into peaceful sleep, the Uzumaki Uchiha family gathered in their compound, surrounded by the gifts and well-wishes from across the shinobi world. "To the future," Naruto said, raising a cup of tea in a simple toast. "To the future," the others echoed. And somewhere in the shrine room, the memorial tablets to the fallen Uchiha seemed to glow just a bit brighter in the candlelight, as if those who had passed were watching, approving, and blessing the new beginning their clan had found. The ceremony of flames had concluded, but the fire it kindled would burn for generations to come. The Uchiha compound had evolved from a quiet family home into something resembling controlled chaos. Takashi, now 15 months old, had begun walking, and promptly decided that walking was insufficient. He tottered everywhere with determined speed, his chakra-enhanced stamina meaning he rarely tired. Akari, at 12 months, was more reserved but equally mobile, preferring to observe before acting but moving with surprising precision when she did. Naruto stood in the main courtyard, watching Mikoto chase after Takashi while Yuki tried to convince Akari that eating dirt was not an acceptable activity. He would have helped, but his arms were full, literally. Izumi had given birth 3 months ago to twins. "Kenji and Hana are finally asleep," Kaori whispered, emerging from the nursery. "Don't move, don't breathe, don't even think too loudly." Naruto froze comically, still holding the 2 sleeping infants. The twins had been a surprise. Multiples ran in neither the Uzumaki nor Uchiha lines historically, but apparently, the genetic combination created new possibilities. Kenji, named after Akane's son, who had insisted on the honor, was larger and more robust, while Hana was smaller but showed remarkable chakra control even in infancy. "How long do I have to stand here?" Naruto whispered back. "Until they're in their cribs," Kaori replied. "Or until your arms fall off. Whichever comes first." Suki appeared, mercifully taking Hana from Naruto's arms with practiced ease. "Incoming," she warned quietly. "Rin's water just broke." Naruto's eyes widened. "Now? But she's not due for another 2 weeks. Babies don't care about schedules," Suki said, already moving toward the medical room. "Kaori, prep the delivery suite. Naruto, once you put Kenji down, go be with Rin. And someone please make sure Takashi doesn't wake the twins." The household erupted into organized motion. Over the past year, they'd developed systems for handling crises. And with 4 children under 2 and more on the way, every day brought at least one crisis. Naruto managed to place Kenji in his crib without waking him, a minor miracle, and rushed to the medical room where Rin was already being examined by Sakura, who had practically become a permanent fixture in the compound. "How are you doing?" Naruto asked, taking Rin's hand. Annoyed that Junior decided to arrive early, Rin replied with typical pragmatism, though her grip on his hand was tight. "I had 2 more weeks of research to complete before maternity leave." "Your research can wait," Sakura said firmly. "This baby cannot. You're already at 6 centimeters. This is going to be fast." Rin's labor proved to be the quickest yet. 4 hours later, a baby boy entered the world with a strong cry and immediate alertness. His eyes opened quickly, scanning the room with unusual awareness for a newborn. "He's got your analytical stare already," Naruto told Rin, who cradled their son with a soft smile that few outside the family ever saw. "Riku," she said. "His name is Riku. It means land, stable, grounded, foundational. Everything the Uchiha weren't during our decline. Everything I want him to be." Riku Uzumaki Uchiha proved to be an exceptionally calm baby from the start. While Takashi had been active and Akari intense, Riku seemed content to observe, his dark eyes tracking movement with unusual focus. Within days, Koori's examinations revealed something fascinating. "His chakra pathways are developing in a different pattern than the others," she explained during a family medical briefing. "Takashi's developed for physical enhancement and raw power. Akari's showed affinity for control and precision. The twins are still too young to determine. But Riku, his pathways suggest a natural inclination towards sensory abilities and perception. Each child is developing unique strengths," Rin observed, making notes. "The genetic combination isn't creating identical results. It's amplifying individual potential in different directions." "That's good, right?" Naruto asked. "Diversity of abilities? It's excellent," Sakura confirmed. "It means they won't all be competing in the same areas. They'll complement each other, like a natural squad formation." As if to prove the point, 3-month-old Hana began crying in the nursery, and 14-month-old Takashi immediately toddled over to her crib, patting her hand until she calmed. The moment was caught by Akane, who'd been supervising. "They're already bonding," she reported to the others. "Takashi seems to have appointed himself big brother protector." The observation proved accurate. As the children grew, a clear hierarchy emerged. Takashi, as the eldest, showed natural leadership. Akari, just 3 months younger, became his partner in balance. Where he charged ahead, she calculated. The twins, Kenji and Hana, developed an almost telepathic connection that made them frighteningly effective at coordinated mischief. And baby Riku observed it all with his unnervingly aware gaze. Managing 5 children under 2 years old required military-level logistics. The wives had established rotating schedules. 2 on primary childcare duty each day, 2 on support, 2 on personal time or missions, and 1 on household management. Naruto helped whenever his Hokage duties allowed, though he'd learned that shadow clones, while useful for paperwork, were inadequate for childcare. "They can sense the difference," Naomi had explained after one clone had accidentally let Takashi borrow his Hokage hat, which the toddler promptly used as a toy boat in the koi pond. Children need authentic presence. Still, Naruto made it work. He'd arrive home from the office and immediately be mobbed by toddlers demanding attention. He'd learned to read bedtime stories with a baby on each arm, perfected the art of heating bottles to exact temperatures, and could change a diaper in under 30 seconds, a skill he was oddly proud of. The Hokage, legendary shinobi, Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, and the world's fastest diaper changer, Shikamaru had commented dryly during one office meeting where Naruto had demonstrated his technique on a theoretical basis. "Your legacy is truly awe-inspiring." But domesticity didn't mean the outside world had forgotten about them. If anything, the attention had intensified. The children's existence had become international news. Reports circulated about their accelerated development, their unusual chakra signatures, their potential future abilities. Some villages viewed them as threats to be monitored, others as resources to be cultivated or acquired, and a few as symbols of hope for a new generation of cooperation. "We're receiving formal requests for marriage contracts," Shikamaru reported during a security briefing. "Multiple noble families want to secure betrothals with your children. Some are offering substantial political and economic incentives. They're babies," Naruto said flatly. "They're not political bargaining chips. I know that, you know that. But try telling that to every ambitious clan head who sees your children as tickets to power," Shikamaru replied. "We need a formal policy on this before it becomes a diplomatic incident." After consulting with his wives, Naruto issued a public statement. The Uzumaki Uchiha children would make their own choices regarding marriage and relationships when they were old enough to do so. No contracts would be entertained, no betrothals arranged, no deals made. The decision was final. The response was mixed. Some applauded the progressive stance, others grumbled about missed opportunities, and a few took offense at the rejection. But the policy held. More concerning were the attempted kidnappings. The first attempt came when Takashi was 16 months old. A team of skilled infiltrators breached the compound's outer defenses during the night, targeting the nursery wing. They got within 50 feet before triggering the secondary security seals. Naruto and Suki responded within seconds, intercepting the intruders before they reached the children. The fight was brief and brutal. Naruto's overwhelming power combined with Suki's Sharingan-enhanced taijutsu made short work of the attackers. Interrogation revealed they'd been hired by a rogue faction in the Land of Earth, operating without their Kage's knowledge but with backing from certain nobles who wanted Uchiha genetic material. They were after blood samples, Ibiki explained after the interrogation. DNA to attempt replication of the Sharingan. They probably would have taken a child if possible, but even tissue samples would have been valuable. The incident led to a complete security overhaul. New seals, additional ANBU patrols, chakra sensing barriers, and a direct alert system to the Hokage's office. The compound became a fortress that happened to house a family rather than a home that incidentally needed protection. Is this how it's going to be? Naomi asked one night after the security upgrades were complete. She held a sleeping Takashi, her expression troubled. Are children growing up in a gilded cage? Not a cage, Naruto corrected gently. Protection. There's a difference. They'll still play, explore, train, and live normal lives. Just with better security. Normal lives, Izumi repeated from where she sat with the twins. Is there anything normal about this situation? Mikoto spoke up from her corner, where she'd been reading. Normal is relative. These children will grow up surrounded by love, protected by the most powerful shinobi in the world, and trained by experts in multiple disciplines. They'll face unique challenges, yes, but they'll have unprecedented advantages. We can't give them normal, but we can give them better. Her words settled the discussion, but the underlying worry remained. They were raising children who would never have ordinary lives, who would carry expectations and face threats most shinobi never encountered. The question was how to prepare them without crushing them under the weight of their legacy. 2 months after Rika's birth, Akane made an announcement that surprised everyone. I'm pregnant again, she said during a family dinner, her hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. I wasn't planning on it. I thought I was done after my son with my first husband. But here we are. The news was met with mixed reactions. Joy certainly, but also concern. Akane was the oldest of the wives at 42, and while shinobi maintained their physical capabilities longer than civilians, pregnancy at her age carried additional risks. We'll monitor you closely, Kaori assured her. More frequent checkups, restricted activity, specialized care. You'll be fine. Akane's pregnancy was indeed more difficult than the younger wives. She experienced more fatigue, more nausea, and more complications. But she bore it with characteristic grace, joking that if she could survive raising a teenage boy alone, she could handle anything. Her son Kenji, now 17 and a chunin, proved surprisingly helpful. He'd initially been awkward about his mother's new marriage and the unusual family dynamic, but the children had won him over. He became their unofficial protector and playmate, his own Uchiha heritage making him feel connected to the legacy being built. It's weird calling Naruto stepfather when he's only a few years older than me, Kenji admitted to Sasuke one day during training. But he's good to mom, and he's good to the kids. That's what matters. Family is complicated, Sasuke replied, thinking of his own mother's place in this arrangement. What matters is the commitment, not the conventional structure. 6 months into Akane's pregnancy, Kaori made her own announcement. I'm expecting as well. About 2 months along, the family was now dealing with 2 simultaneous pregnancies again, plus 5 children under 2 years old. The compound resembled a small village unto itself. Multiple nurseries, a dedicated medical wing, expanded living quarters, and enough staff to manage the complex household. We're going to need a bigger compound, Rin joked, though she wasn't entirely wrong. The joke became reality when Naruto proposed expanding the Uchiha district. The massacre had left dozens of empty houses and buildings. Rather than let them decay, they could be repurposed, some converted into additional living space, others into training facilities, medical centers, and educational spaces specifically designed for the unique needs of Uzumaki Uchiha children. We're building our own village within the village, Shikamaru observed when reviewing the plans. I hope you realize what kind of message this sends. It sends the message that we're here to stay, Naruto replied. That the Uchiha clan isn't just being preserved, it's being reborn. If that makes some people uncomfortable, that's their problem. The expansion began, and with it, an interesting development. Other shinobi, those with nowhere else to go, those seeking the stability the compound represented, those who believed in what Naruto was building, began requesting to join the district. Not as Uchiha or even as clan members, but as supporters and allies. We're accidentally creating a new clan structure, Izumi observed. Not based on blood alone, but on shared purpose and loyalty. Isn't that what clans should be? Naomi asked. Communities of people working toward common goals. The discussion led to a formal policy. The Uzumaki Uchiha clan would accept affiliated members, shinobi and civilians who aligned with their values and wanted to be part of what they were building. These affiliates wouldn't carry the clan names unless they married in, but they'd have access to the compound, training opportunities, and the security of being part of something larger. Within months, the expanded district housed nearly 100 people, including the core family. It became a thriving community. Children playing in courtyards, shinobi training in dedicated spaces, families sharing meals in communal areas, and a sense of belonging that hadn't existed in Konoha since before the massacre. You've done it again, Kakashi told Naruto one evening as they watched the district's evening activities from a rooftop. You've taken something broken and made it whole through sheer determination and optimism. I had help, Naruto replied, thinking of his 7 wives, their children, and everyone who'd chosen to be part of this experiment. As Takashi approached his 2nd birthday, his development continued to astound. He could speak in full sentences, showed remarkable chakra control for his age, and had begun demonstrating his first techniques, simple leaf-sticking exercises that most academy students didn't master until age 6 or 7. But more impressive than his abilities was his personality. Despite being raised in unusual circumstances, surrounded by incredible power and constant attention, Takashi remained a kind, curious, generous child. He shared his toys with his siblings, showed concern when others were hurt, and displayed the same instinctive understanding of people that Naruto possessed. He's going to be something special, Jiraiya's voice seemed to whisper in Naruto's memory. The child of prophecy's children, now that's a story worth writing. Akari, meanwhile, developed in a different direction. Where Takashi was open and expressive, she was reserved and calculating. Her Sharingan awakened at 18 months, the youngest activation on record, appearing spontaneously when she was trying to understand how a complex toy worked. The single tomo spun lazily as she studied the mechanism, then her tiny hands moved with sudden precision to solve the puzzle. Genius-level problem-solving combined with early Sharingan manifestation, Rin documented clinically, though her voice held maternal pride. She's going to be formidable. The twins, Kenji and Hana, showed their own unique development. They communicated in a language only they seemed to understand, not baby talk, but a form of twin speak that transcended words. Tests revealed their chakra signatures were partially synchronized, suggesting a connection deeper than typical sibling bonds. It's like they're 2 parts of one system, Kaori explained. I've never seen anything like it. They can sense each other's emotional states, and their chakra naturally flows toward harmony when they're together. Riku, the youngest at 6 months, continued to observe everything with his unsettling awareness. He tracked conversations like he understood them, reached for objects with clear intent rather than random baby grabbing, and showed signs of sensory abilities that shouldn't manifest until much later. 5 children, 5 completely different developmental paths, Sakura summarized during one of her regular evaluations. The Uzumaki Uchiha combination isn't creating a standardized result, it's creating individuals with enhanced versions of their natural inclinations. That's good, right? Naruto asked, a refrain he found himself repeating often. It's unprecedented, Sakura replied. Good, bad, concerning, exciting, it's all of those things. We're literally watching the creation of a new type of shinobi. As Akane entered her 3rd trimester and Kaori her 2nd, the household prepared for 2 more additions. Naomi, Yuki, Izumi, and Rin all expressed varying levels of interest in having more children, but agreed to wait until the current infants were older. Let's see if we can survive what we already have, Rin said pragmatically, watching Takeshi lead Akari and the twins in some elaborate game that seemed to involve way too much chakra for toddlers. Suki, notably, hadn't expressed interest in pregnancy yet. When Naruto gently asked about it, she was characteristically direct. "I'm not sure I want children," she admitted. "I know that might seem strange given our situation, but I never had strong maternal instincts. I'm happy being Aunt Suki to the others' kids. If that changes, I'll say so. But right now, my role in this family is different, and I'm okay with that." Her honesty was refreshing, and the others respected her choice. Not every wife needed to have children for the family to function. Suki's contributions as a trainer, protector, and aunt were equally valuable. Mikoto, too, had remained undecided. At her age and given her unique circumstances as someone brought back through modified Edo Tensei, pregnancy carried unknown risks. She seemed content as a grandmother figure to the children, providing wisdom and guidance while letting the younger wives handle the physical demands of infant care. Takeshi's second birthday celebration was a lavish affair, with guests from across Konoha and representatives from allied villages. The toddler received gifts ranging from traditional toys to miniature training equipment, from Sasuke, naturally, to a stuffed fox from Kurama, delivered via Naruto's mindscape, somehow materialized physically. During the party, something remarkable happened. Takeshi, surrounded by adults and children, held up his hands and created a perfect sphere of chakra, not a Rasengan, but a stable, controlled ball of energy that hovered above his palms. The courtyard fell silent. Even the adults stopped talking, staring at the 2-year-old performing a feat that required years of training and control. "Did he just?" Sakura started. "Yes," Kaori confirmed, her medical sensors going wild. "Perfect chakra control, stable formation, no guidance or instruction. He did that entirely on instinct." Takeshi, oblivious to the significance, giggled and let the chakra dissipate. "Pretty," he declared, then ran off to play with Akari. "We're going to need to start formal training earlier than planned," Sasuke said quietly to Naruto. "If they're manifesting abilities like this as toddlers, they need guidance before they hurt themselves or others." The discussion led to the creation of a specialized early education program. Not the harsh training of the old clan systems, but age-appropriate instruction that respected the children's accelerated development, while preserving their childhood. "They're still kids," Naruto insisted during the planning. "I don't care how advanced they are, they get to play, make friends, make mistakes, and be children. Training is important, but it's not everything." The program they developed balanced education and play, training and exploration, discipline and freedom. It would become a model that other clans and villages would eventually adopt. But for now, it was just an attempt to give their unique children the best possible foundation. 2 months after Takeshi's birthday, Akane gave birth to a baby girl. The delivery was complicated. Her age and the genetic factors combined to create difficulties that required both Sakura and Tsunade's intervention. But after 12 tense hours, a healthy baby emerged. "Yui," Akane said, exhausted but radiant. "Her name is Yui. It means bind or tie, because she binds me to this new life, this new family, in ways I never expected." Yui proved to be the calmest of all the children. Where the others had shown remarkable development, Yui seemed almost normal. Her chakra pathways developed at standard rates. Her awareness was typical for an infant, and her early months showed no particular remarkable traits. "Is something wrong with her?" Akane worried during a routine checkup. "She's perfectly healthy," Kaori assured her. "Just developing at a more typical pace." It's actually fascinating. Even within the same genetic combination, we're seeing a range of outcomes. Yui might be what we'd call the baseline, while the others are enhanced variants. "So she's not going to be a super genius ninja prodigy?" Akane asked. "She's going to be exactly who she's meant to be," Mikoto said gently. "And sometimes normal is more valuable than exceptional. She'll balance her siblings, provide perspective, and have her own strengths that don't fit conventional measurements." The observation proved wise. As Yui grew, she became the emotional center of the children. Her older siblings naturally gravitated to her when they were upset or overwhelmed. Her calming presence seemed to balance their intensity. 3 months after Yui's birth, Kaori delivered twins. Her pregnancy had hidden the fact that she carried 2 babies until late in the 2nd trimester. 2 boys, named Takumi and Ryota, who showed early signs of their mother's medical intuition and precise chakra control. 7 children. The prophecy's 7 flames interpreted not as 7 wives alone, but as 7 of the next generation, so far, lighting the way forward. The compound was now home to 7 children under 3 years old, Takashi at 2 years and 3 months, Akari at 2 years, Kenji and Hana, the twins, at 1 year and 3 months, Riku at 9 months, Yui at 3 months, and newborn Takumi and Ryota. Managing this chaos required every bit of organization, cooperation, and patience the family possessed. But they managed. Somehow, impossibly, they managed. "We're creating our own village," Naruto observed one evening, watching the compound's activities. Children playing, wives coordinating, affiliates training, life flourishing where there had been death and emptiness. "We're creating a legacy," Izumi corrected, standing beside him with baby Kenji in her arms. "Not just for our clan, but for what shinobi families can be. You've taken the prophecy and made it real, not through power or politics, but through the simple act of building something worth believing in." As the sun set over Konoha, the Uchiha district glowed with light and life. The memorial shrine still honored those lost in the massacre, but now it was surrounded by the sounds of children laughing, families gathering, and a future being built one day at a time. The seeds of tomorrow had been planted. Now came the long, patient work of helping them grow into something worthy of the sacrifice that made them possible. And in the nursery, 7 children slept, mostly. Takumi was fussing, and Takashi had somehow ended up in Akari's crib despite having his own, each carrying within them the potential to reshape the shinobi world. The prophecy had spoken of guardians for a new era. These children, and those yet to come, would be that and more.